Now this is a terrible idea from the very beginning. The monster lord of Holstead is at the ball, and somehow Count Baldwin takes one look at the man's wife and thinks he actually has a chance. After all, this isn't just any noblewoman. She is a woman blessed with both beauty and brains. She's helped increase their fortune, assisted in countless devil hunts, and earned a reputation as one of the most capable women in the north. Most nobles look at her and immediately think she's too good for her husband. After all, the monster lord is feared across the kingdom. People see the mask, hear the rumors, and convince themselves that any woman married to him must be suffering, and Count Baldwin is foolish enough to believe he's about to save her. Now, despite having plenty of ladies pursuing him already, Baldwin marches right up to her with all the confidence of a man who has never experienced public humiliation. He introduces himself and explains that seeing such a beautiful woman standing alone left him no choice but to come over and speak with her. She gives him a short response. His smile falters. No problem. Maybe she's shy, so he tries again. He starts talking about the evening, hoping to spark a proper conversation. Another short response. At this point, most people would realize they're not welcome. Baldwin, however, decides to double down. And this is where everything goes wrong. Convinced something must be bothering her, he lowers his voice and asks whether she's being threatened by the monster lord. Then he comes up with what might be the worst rescue plan in noble history. If she's being forced to stay with her husband, she should give him a secret signal. A blink. The man genuinely thinks he's a genius. The woman stares at him for a moment. Naturally, Baldwin immediately assumes she's signaling for help. The poor guy is already imagining himself rescuing her from the evil monster. Then reality arrives with a flying kick. She tells him he's ugly. Wow. The Count is so stunned that he actually asks how he's ugly. Unfortunately for him, our girl is more than happy to explain. She points out that he keeps pushing his face toward hers and that his features are arranged so strangely that he resembles some horrifying deep-sea creature. Ladies and gentlemen, this wasn't a conversation anymore. This was an execution. And she's still not finished. Since he suggested blinking as a secret signal, she reminds him that people blink around 15,000 times a day. The fact that he thought this was a clever plan makes her question his intelligence altogether. At this point, Baldwin has suffered so much emotional damage that even the audience starts feeling bad for him. Almost. Having thoroughly destroyed the Count's confidence, she excuses herself and walks away. Meanwhile, the monster lord has been minding his own business the entire time. When she returns, he simply asks whether she's finished her research. But before the conversation can continue, whispers begin spreading throughout the ballroom. People are staring, people are gossiping, and people are once again calling him a monster. The saddest part is that none of them actually know him. They've already decided who he is without ever speaking to him. The monster lord notices the whispers but doesn't react. Instead, he calmly suggests that they leave. Back inside the carriage, we finally see what kind of man he truly is. The first thing on his mind isn't himself. It's her. He's worried that bringing her to the ball caused her trouble. He even suggests that she attend future invitations alone because he feels his presence attracts too much unwanted attention. What really hurts him is hearing people say she's married to a monster. Meanwhile, his wife couldn't care less what those nobles think, because unlike everyone else, she knows the real man behind the mask. Wanting him to relax, she takes his hand and asks him to remove it. The monster lord hesitates. He's convinced that the face beneath the mask is too hideous for anyone to look at. She assures him she's getting used to it. Meanwhile, she's secretly thinking the exact opposite. Not because he's ugly, because every time he removes the mask, she remembers how ridiculously handsome he actually is. And this right here is the funniest part of their relationship. The entire kingdom thinks she's trapped with a monster. She's actually trapped with a handsome man who has absolutely no idea how handsome he is. Eventually, he removes the mask and sincerely tells her how lucky he feels to have a wife like her. He can't thank her enough. And once again, neither of them understands what the other is thinking. Because while he believes he's the lucky one, she believes she's the fortunate one. He thinks she deserves someone better. She thinks she's the one who doesn't deserve him. And unfortunately, this misunderstanding is about to get even worse. The monster lord reveals that he still wants to divorce her for her own sake. He even apologizes for not setting her free sooner. Apparently, he'd already prepared divorce papers with the help of a lawyer. There is just one tiny problem. The papers disappeared. What a tragedy. At least that's what she pretends. Because our girl knows exactly where those papers went. She burned them. Every single one. And honestly, can you blame her? While he's trying to end the marriage, she's trying to protect it. This man is fighting devils. His wife is fighting divorce. Pretending to help, she explains that lawyers rarely travel to the demon-infested north. If he wants new papers, he'll have to travel south and meet one personally. Unfortunately, he's far too busy hunting devils to make the trip. Instead of feeling relieved, the monster lord becomes even more upset. The delay means she'll have to stay in the north longer. Since her parents passed away there, he's worried remaining in the region will only worsen her grief. Once again, he's putting her happiness before his own. And once again, she's trying not to smile. Because divorce is the last thing she wants. So she gently tells him not to rush. Take your time. And just like that, another divorce attempt is successfully defeated. The monster lord gratefully takes her hand and tells her she's too good for him. Meanwhile, she's already planning her next move. If she has to spread terrifying rumors among every lawyer in the kingdom to keep them away from her husband, then so be it. Because as far as she's concerned, divorce has never been an option. The real problem isn't demons, it isn't nobles, and it definitely isn't the Monster Lord. The real problem is that these two are completely in love with each other, and neither of them realizes how deeply the other feels. One is desperately trying to end the marriage, the other is secretly making sure it lasts forever. And at this point, that's a far more difficult battle than any devil hunt. Now, this story does not start gently at all. It starts with a house on fire and a girl screaming for help, but before we even get to understand what's happening, she wakes up and realizes this isn't the first time she's seen this nightmare, just another one of those dreams from her past life. And honestly, that detail alone already tells you something is very wrong with this world. Black smoke is swallowing the room, flames crawling across the walls, and the sensation of what happened is still fresh in her mind like it never fully left. Yeah, this isn't just a dream problem. This is trauma that bleeds into reality. But the real issue isn't even the fire. It's the law. In this world, if someone breaks a blood pledge, the temple doesn't negotiate. They seize everything and lock you away for life in a dungeon. No second chances. No mercy. And right at the center of this chaos is her family. Her auntie is already pleading for reason, telling her husband to stop whatever he's planning. But the man isn't listening. Because in his mind, there's only one way to fix a broken blood pledge. Blood. And that's when things get worse. Because he says it out loud. His niece Letitia is bound to him by blood, so she can be used to repay the debt. And just like that, everything clicks into place. Wait, is he seriously trying to sell her off to the north? Letitia immediately catches on. This isn't just a family drama. This is inheritance politics dressed up as morality. If she gets married into the Holstead family, someone clearly stands to lose control over her inheritance. So yeah, this isn't love. This is business wrapped in betrayal. And then comes the emotional knife twist. One of her sisters casually suggests she'd actually make a perfect match for the Monster Lord. Why? Because she's a witch. And that one word hits harder than anything else so far. The accusation spreads quickly. Her sister explains it like it's the obvious truth, pointing out how Letitia talks in her sleep and has always been strange. Letitia immediately snaps back, insisting it's nonsense. There's no proof, just rumors being dressed up as fact. But in this world, that's often all it takes. Then comes the cruelest part. Someone brings up the old belief that witches are unnatural from birth, and that the temple will eventually confirm it through interrogation, and everyone knows what that really means. Interrogation isn't investigation, it's exposure. And if they take her to the temple, she won't survive what comes next. Her aunt, surprisingly, isn't completely heartless. She insists Letitia shouldn't be eliminated. After all, she's family. But even that kindness comes with a chain attached, because the aunt has already decided the solution. Send her to the north and marry her into the Holstead household. Not out of cruelty. Out of protection. And that might be the scariest kind of decision in this whole situation. Letitia doesn't have a choice. If she stays, she risks the temple. If she leaves, she's sent straight into the territory of the Monster Lord. Either way, she's being moved like an object, not a person. And just like that, the decision is made. She's going to the north. The next day, she's in a carriage heading toward the land everyone fears. But here's the twist. Instead of panicking, she starts trying to reason her way through it. Maybe the Monster Lord isn't that bad. People exaggerate things. After all, humans live in the north too. He's not an actual devil, right? And honestly, that kind of coping feels dangerously optimistic. Then suddenly, the carriage jolts. Something is wrong. Before anyone can understand what's happening, they've already crossed into the north. Too fast. A sandstorm rises out of nowhere, throwing everything into chaos. The carriage loses control, and in the confusion, she spots another carriage moving through the storm like it belongs there. She tries to move toward it, but the ground betrays her and she falls. And that's when she hears it. Voices in the storm. Not human ones. Something is calling her. A little human girl. And just like that, her safe journey into the north starts feeling less like relocation, and more like being dropped straight into a hunting ground. She doesn't think twice. The moment the creatures lose sight of her, Letitia bolts. But the north doesn't let anyone run freely for long. Soon enough, she hits a dead end. And just like that, the situation goes from dangerous to, this might actually be the end. The creatures close in, already talking about feasting on her like she's nothing more than a lost meal. For a moment, it really feels like this is it. Is this seriously how her second life ends? In a place she barely understands, eaten alive by monsters? And the irony is painful. She'd honestly rather be eliminated by the Monster Lord than become unalive like this. At least that would make sense. But in the middle of panic, something strange happens. She starts doubting her own senses. Is she hallucinating from fear? Or is something actually here? Because suddenly she notices something completely out of place. Butane fuel cans, stacked nearby like they were just waiting. And that detail hits her harder than it should. She recognizes them instantly. In her past life, she used to keep exactly these kinds of cans next to her instant noodles in her room. Use them for portable gas burners. Normal, everyday life things. So why are they here in the middle of a monster-infested wasteland? That question doesn't get answered. Because now she's staring at a fire nearby, and a very dangerous idea starts forming. If this works, she might actually survive. So she moves carefully, sneaks in, and grabs one of the cans. The creatures notice immediately, confused about what she's doing, and then things get worse, much worse. Because even in a situation like this, Letitia somehow relies on the one skill she never expected to matter again: baseball. With terrifying precision, she throws the fuel can straight toward the fire. But luck isn't on her side. A horse-like creature intercepts it midair, and for a split second, it feels like everything was pointless. The monsters even start laughing, thinking she's failed completely. Then reality catches up. The fuel ignites, and the explosion tears through the area. The laughter fades instantly. The creatures panic, scrambling and accusing her of using magic, immediately deciding they'll report her to the Great Devil. And that name alone shifts the entire atmosphere. Because now the situation isn't just chaos anymore, it's escalating. Letitia doesn't even have time to process what just happened before the tension spikes again. Because someone is coming. The so-called Great Devil. A sword is drawn as the figure approaches, and for a moment she thinks it's over again, this time for real. But instead of attacking her, he cuts down the remaining creatures without hesitation. Just like that, the immediate danger is erased. And now she's standing there, alive, but surrounded by uncertainty. Nearby, a group of humans appears. One of them scans the aftermath of the explosion, confused, wondering if a wizard was involved. Another notices Letitia and immediately realizes she doesn't belong here. She looks too lost. They approach carefully, asking questions about what happened, while reporting that they found a wrecked carriage earlier with no passengers. Then comes the recognition. Shock spreads through them as they realize who she is. Count Grey's daughter, and she confirms it. They mention that Grey kept his promise, though what that promise actually means lingers in the air like unfinished business. And then the real weight of the moment arrives. The Great Devil steps forward. But Letitia's eyes aren't on his weapon. They're on the symbol, a dragon crest with 2 pairs of wings, Holstead, the Monster Lord's house. And in that instant, everything clicks into place. The terrifying figure in front of her isn't just some rumor. He's her future husband. The Monster Lord of Holstead. Now we're inside Holstead Castle, and things are not getting any calmer for Letitia. The moment she steps in, the servants are already whispering. Everyone is murmuring about what happened outside, about how the IMPs must have terrified her. And just like that, her anxiety shoots right back up. Because in her mind, she's not thinking castle. She's thinking, next phase of sacrifice. Then suddenly, someone grabs her from behind. She jumps so hard, she nearly leaves her soul behind. The man immediately apologizes, panicking, but the damage is already done. Before he can explain anything, other voices start shouting at him. Apparently, his name is Casaro, and he's being scolded for scaring her. But here's the twist. He wasn't trying to ambush her. He just wanted to offer her cookies. Cookies. And that alone says everything about how wildly different everyone's intentions are compared to how Letitia is interpreting them. Because while Casaro is standing there holding baked goods like an innocent cook, Letitia is standing there wondering if she just got captured and added to the menu. People even question whether now is really the time for cookies, after everything she's been through fighting IMPs. Fair question. Meanwhile, another figure steps forward. Alexa, the castle butler. He introduces himself with a sharp, almost intimidating glare, and Letitia immediately concludes one thing. This man is a liar. Then comes Bastian, the nursemaid, and Casaro again as the cook. At this point, Letitia is not feeling comforted at all. If anything, every introduction makes the castle feel more suspicious. So a maid finally steps in, trying to calm things down. She gently decides to escort Letitia to her room so she can rest. But rest is the last thing on Letitia's mind. As they walk, her thoughts spiral deeper. What exactly is going to happen to her here? Is she going to be sacrificed or kept like a slave? And then a memory hits her. A disturbing rumor about witches, locked rooms, and the belongings of deceased girls stacked like a tower. And just like that, her imagination does what it does best, run completely wild. She starts wondering about a nearby room. What is it for? Why is it locked? And why is the maid so vague about it? The maid simply says she'll find out soon enough. And that makes everything worse. At this point, Letitia is genuinely thinking she might have been better off dying to the IMPs earlier. At least that would have been quick. Here, everything feels like waiting for an unknown execution. Sleep doesn't come. She keeps imagining worst-case scenarios. What if they come into her room at night? What if tomorrow is the day she's taken away? What if this entire castle is just a waiting room for something terrible? Eventually, she can't take it anymore. She gets up, just to walk, just to breathe. She opens the door and immediately realizes the castle is massive. Endless corridors stretch out like a maze. And for the first time, a dangerous thought slips in. Maybe she could escape. But before she can act on that idea, she hears footsteps. Men approaching, she quickly hides. They pass by without noticing her, and she exhales in relief. Except, someone is still there, standing right next to her. The Monster Lord. She nearly becomes unalive on the spot again. He calmly asks what she's doing, and she blurts out that she got lost. He doesn't seem bothered, though. Instead, he simply tells her to follow him. Now she's even more confused. Where is he taking her? They arrive at a different part of the castle, a stable. He tells her the stairs lead down there, and she can pick a horse and leave. If she wants, the horsekeeper can escort her safely to the south. Just like that, no conditions. And Letitia is completely thrown off, because this is not what she expected at all. He even asks directly if she was trying to run away. She admits she was, but now she's stuck. No money, no home she can return to. If she goes back, she'll be burned as a witch. If she leaves on her own, she'll probably become unalive somewhere worse. So staying here is ironically the safest option. And then she says it. If he would just take her as his bride and spare her life? He interrupts immediately. He can't, not right now. And that answer breaks something in her. Tears start falling as she assumes the worst. At this point, becoming the Monster Lord's dinner feels like a real possibility. The misunderstanding is so deep at this point, it loops back into absurdity. The Monster Lord freezes as he wonders where that is even coming from. When he asks, she confidently replies that it's because he feasts on people. He is genuinely shocked and very confused. He denies it immediately, but she's already spiraling, begging him not to eliminate her or do anything horrible to her. At that point, he finally snaps, not in anger, but in disbelief. And he tells her something completely unexpected. He's still just a minor, just like her. And that one sentence hits her harder than anything else so far. Because for the first time since arriving in Holstead, she realizes she might be terrified of someone who is just as confused as she is. After finally stopping the flood of terrifying assumptions, Erdin leads Letitia into another room and has her sit down. He even serves her tea before checking whether she's all right. And honestly, at this point, the poor girl has gone through enough emotional damage for one day. Thankfully, Erdin immediately clears up the biggest misunderstanding. Cannibalism? Not happening. Human sacrifices? Also not happening. His family doesn't practice anything remotely close to that, so she can stop preparing for a gruesome elimination. The relief on her face is almost immediate. For the first time since arriving in the north, things are starting to sound a little less horrifying. Then Erdin brings up their engagement. Since they're both still minors, there won't be any marriage anytime soon. An engagement is more than enough for now. That's when Letitia learns something surprising. The feared Monster Lord is only 15 years old. 15. The terrifying ruler everyone talks about is just 3 years older than her. Suddenly, he feels a lot less like a legendary monster and a lot more like an awkward teenager wearing a very intimidating mask. Of course, 3 years still sounds like a long time when you're young. That's 3 full cycles of spring, summer, autumn, and winter before any marriage could even become a reality. But before they can continue discussing that, Letitia finally asks about the mysterious room. You know, the one she'd convinced herself was filled with the belongings of countless sacrificed girls. The moment she describes it, Erdin looks completely confused. What room? The locked room. Without hesitation, he leads her there. And the second the door opens, her entire theory collapses. The room isn't filled with the belongings of dead girls. It's filled with gifts, beautiful furniture, decorations, clothes, accessories, all carefully prepared. The room practically sparkles. Meanwhile, Letitia is standing there realizing she's been terrified of absolutely nothing. Apparently, nobody knew exactly when she would arrive, so the servants rushed to prepare everything as soon as they heard she was coming. To Erdin, it still doesn't feel good enough. A noble lady raised around luxury probably deserves much more than this. But Letitia genuinely loves it. And just like that, another terrifying rumor dies. Unfortunately, she's not done investigating. Next on the list are the 3 old witches. The question catches Erdin completely off guard. 3 old witches? After a brief moment, he finally figures out who she's talking about. Bastion, Alexa, and Casaro. At this point, the audience can probably guess what's happening. Every horrifying rumor Letitia has heard turns out to be completely wrong. According to Erdin, they're a little rough around the edges, but they're good people. Nobody is plotting to eat her, planning to sacrifice her, or brewing mysterious witch potions in the basement. Though Erdin does admit that many of the rumors about him are true. And honestly, that confession doesn't help much. The problem is that Erdin genuinely believes he's a terrible match for her. In his eyes, she's too good for this castle, too good for the room, and definitely too good for him. Meanwhile, Letitia has her own confession to make, one that's actually serious. She's not Count Grey's real daughter. The room suddenly becomes much quieter. Her parents passed away long ago. After that, her aunt and uncle adopted her. When the time came to honor the pledge, they sent her instead of their own daughters. In other words, she was the expendable option. And hearing that immediately changes Erdin's expression. The more he learns about her situation, the less he likes her relatives. Why would they force her to come? More importantly, why did she agree? Because she didn't have a choice. And honestly, what answer was he expecting? Go back and face accusations of witchcraft? Stay and risk being burned alive? Her options were terrible from the beginning. At this point, Erdin reaches a conclusion. Her aunt and uncle have absolutely no business taking care of her. Then comes the question that truly matters. Does she want to go back? The answer arrives immediately. No. And for the first time since arriving at Holstead, Letitia is choosing something for herself. Seeing that, Erdin makes a decision of his own. She can stay, as long as she wants. Nobody in the castle will harm her, nobody will force her to leave. And if protection is needed, she'll have it. To make sure everyone understands that, he doesn't just promise it verbally, he writes it down, signs it, stamps it. The man literally creates paperwork guaranteeing her safety. At this point, he's less of a monster lord and more of a very efficient social worker. Soon afterward, he escorts her back toward her room so she doesn't get lost again, which is honestly a fair concern considering the size of this castle. Once they arrive, he asks whether she'd prefer to sleep with the lights on. She does. Without questioning it, he makes sure everything is arranged before preparing to leave. Then something unexpected happens. She calls him by his name, Erdin. The moment the name leaves her mouth, she immediately worries she might have crossed a line. Instead, he quietly accepts it. In fact, the reaction surprises him more than her. It's been so long since anyone besides his parents called him by his actual name that hearing it feels strangely unfamiliar and strangely nice. With a bright smile, Letitia wishes him goodnight. For the first time all day, the atmosphere feels warm. As the door closes behind him, one final thought lingers. Maybe the Monster Lord isn't a bad person after all, and that immediately leads to another question. What does he actually look like beneath the mask? Meanwhile, Erdin returns to his own room. The moment he's alone, he removes the mask and looks into the mirror. He stares at his reflection for a long moment. And despite everything that's happened tonight, Letitia's trust, her smile, even the way she called him by his name do nothing to change what he sees in the mirror. To him, he's still hideous. The next morning, Letitia wanders into the castle garden and greets the day with a loud, "Good morning," arms stretched high like she's claiming the entire sky for herself. For once, she actually slept well. No nightmares, no strange visions, just peace. Numb. That alone already feels suspicious. While exploring, she spots a massive apple hanging from a tree. Not just big, but absurdly big, something she has never seen before. She tries to reach it, but it's clearly out of her range. Standing there, she starts wondering when exactly she's supposed to grow taller when life keeps putting snacks just out of reach. Before that thought can go further, the apple suddenly drops, cleanly sliced. Letitia turns around and finds Erdin standing there. He calmly offers her pieces of the apple and tells her to take them since she looks hungry. She hesitates for a moment, but he simply adds that breakfast will be ready soon and she shouldn't eat too much. Casaro, he says, is an excellent cook. She takes a bite and immediately pauses. It's genuinely delicious. She thanks him, still a little stunned, and before she can process the moment properly, Erdin is already gone, moving with surprising speed. Only then does it fully register. He is so fast. And for a brief moment, she starts wondering if she has somehow landed in a place where everyone is both terrifying and strangely decent at the same time. At breakfast, the dining table looks almost unreal. Everything is arranged neatly, almost sparkling under the light. Letitia looks around and asks if Casaro really prepared all of it. He responds flatly that food doesn't cook itself. That earns him a teasing reaction from her when she casually calls him a pirate cook, while the maids quietly laugh behind him. Casaro is not amused. After breakfast, Letitia asks if she can speak with Erdin later to thank him properly for the previous night and the apple earlier that morning. Before she even finishes, one of the maids tells her she doesn't need to ask permission at all. She's practically going to be the lady of the house anyway. That line makes her pause for a moment. Still, Erdin is not around. He left earlier that morning. She asks where he went, and the answer comes immediately. Devil hunting. It's part of his duty as Lord of Holstead. The maid reassures her there's no need to worry since he is strong, but Letitia can't help wondering when he will return. It's explained that this is only a short hunt. Longer expeditions will happen later, but for now he should be back tomorrow. That's when she suddenly mentions she wants to help too. The room goes quiet for a second, not because it makes sense, but because it doesn't. She quickly corrects herself, realizing she can't exactly go out hunting devils, but she still wants to contribute in some way. Casaro steps closer and mentions something about Karagan, a term she doesn't recognize. The maid explains that it comes from an old northern dialect and refers to a true lord, someone who protects rather than simply rules. Casaro adds that the castle's protection is divided. One side defends from outside threats, while the other ensures safety within. With Erdin away, that balance shifts inward. And that's where the tradition of knots comes in. When Letitia asks about it, Casaro explains that before someone leaves for battle, they can carry a knot made by someone who cares about them. It's believed to guide them safely back home. More than that, in the north, people aren't afraid of leaving. What they fear is never returning. So the knots become something deeper than tradition. They become reassurance, a reminder that someone is waiting. Without hesitation, Letitia decides she will help make them for everyone going on the expedition. Erdin would likely approve. Casaro tells her the maids usually work on them after meals during breaks, and she should speak with the head maid Romina once she's finished eating. She agrees. Then he adds, almost casually, that growing children should eat properly. Later, Letitia joins the maids to learn how to make the knots. At first, she struggles to explain what she wants, but once they understand, they immediately welcome her in. They even find her adorable. What surprises her most is how easily they accept her. It almost feels unreal. She had always dreamed of something like this, but now that she's actually living it, something unfamiliar settles in her chest. Because when you've spent a long time expecting cruelty, kindness can feel like something that won't last. Tea is offered as they begin teaching her, and for a moment she simply sits there, wondering if this kind of happiness is actually meant for her. Then, the calm breaks. Bells ring across the castle. Sharp and urgent. Something outside has arrived. The castle shifts from calm to chaos in an instant. One moment, it's just confusion about what's going on, and the next, servants scramble in all directions, voices overlapping, orders getting lost in the noise. Alexa steps in fast, cutting through the panic. There's no time for uncertainty. He turns sharply to Casaro and Bastion, demanding answers. And what they give him is worse than expected. Giant ants. Back again. Casaro confirms it with frustration, explaining they were supposed to have been wiped out months ago during the thunderstorm incident. Alexa's expression tightens immediately. If they survived, it means something helped them survive. An artifact. And now they are not creeping in quietly. They are coming in full force from beneath the ground. Outside the walls, the situation is already shifting. Soil begins piling up unnaturally, forming a growing mound against the castle like a staircase being built for invasion. If it continues, the walls won't matter anymore. Inside, messengers are sent out at once, but Erdin is already far away on his hunt. No one knows how long it will take for him to return. Casaro grits his teeth. The timing is too perfect. An attack like this only makes sense if it was planned for the exact moment the strongest defender was absent. Bastion doesn't argue. He's already moving, calling for weapons and manpower. Every available hand is needed. There's no luxury of keeping anyone back. Letitia, watching the chaos unfold, steps forward before she even fully thinks it through. She offers to help. The response is immediate refusal. They tell her to stay out of it, to hide somewhere safe, but she pushes back gently, reminding them they said they need everyone they can get. She can at least carry things. That hesitation is all Bastion allows before nodding once and assigning her tasks. The castle turns into a moving machine of preparation. Weapons are dragged out. Siege tools are set in place. Everyone is working at once, trying to hold back something already closing in. At one point, Letitia is handed equipment tied to fuel-based weapons. The moment she sees it, her mind flickers back to the explosion from before. The memory is brief but sharp. Outside, the pressure increases. Screams rise from the walls as reports come in. The ants are not just climbing, they are digging, coordinating, building from below and above at the same time. One group is forced to focus on the rising soil tower. Another realizes the tunnels beneath are just as dangerous. The castle is being attacked from both directions, and there are not enough defenders to split evenly. Alexa voices what everyone is already realizing. Even if one side holds, the other will collapse. For a moment, the entire strategy feels like it's falling apart. Letitia stands still, caught between fear and urgency. Staying silent would be safer. Speaking up could make everything worse for her. The memory of Erdin flashes through her mind. The apple, kindness, the strange peace this place has given her. And something shifts. She steps forward and admits it. The explosion from earlier was caused by her. The room goes quiet. They remember it immediately. The destruction, the way it turned the battlefield. Suspicion rises instantly. Bastion asks how she knows anything about it. There's no time for long explanations, not with the castle seconds away from being breached. Letitia explains quickly. The fuel reacts violently with fire. If used correctly, it can create a blast strong enough to collapse the soil tower and disrupt the tunnels at the same time. It's risky, but it's also the only option they have. Bastion studies her for a moment, then accepts it. He orders the team to gather anything similar to what she described. At the same time, Letitia calls out for archers, but most are already deployed with Erdin. Then the maids step forward. One of them forces open a storage door, revealing something unexpected. They are not just servants, they are trained fighters. Letitia pauses, surprised, but there's no time to question it. She simply accepts it and moves on. Bastion begins dividing roles immediately. Romina is assigned to the command tower alongside Letitia and the ranged units. Others are instructed to prepare fire-tipped arrows and coordinated strikes using gunpowder pouches to spread flames across the enemy lines. The strategy forms quickly now. No more hesitation. The castle is preparing to burn the invasion out before it reaches the walls. And outside, the ground keeps moving. The arrows don't stop. Alexa's signal keeps them moving, keeps the rhythm tight, and one by one the ants begin to fall. The relief is almost dizzying. It's actually working, but Letitia's eyes are already elsewhere. She grabs Romina and points, the queen, slipping away through the chaos, unbothered and unharmed. Let her go and everything they just fought through means nothing. She'll rebuild, regroup, and come back worse. One fuel tank left between them and a target that won't wait. Alexa doesn't even blink. He calls the signal. Romina lines it up and pulls. The shot travels like it was always meant to find her. The moment it connects, something strange bleeds out from the queen's body, and then, stillness. A beat of pure, breathless stillness before it breaks open into chaos of a different kind entirely. Romina's arms are around Letitia before anyone else moves. The celebration is loud and unpolished and completely earned. The kind that only comes after something that could have gone very wrong. Didn't. No casualties. Letitia watches it all and lets the noise wash over her. Safe. That's all it ever needed to be. Then, Alexa is in front of her, and something in his face has shifted, the commander tucked away for just a moment, something more genuine taking its place. He lifts her without warning and says it where everyone can hear. Their lady saved them. Holstead won't forget it. They'll repay her with their lives without hesitation, without question, and without end. The jubilation swallows everything after that. Soon, his lordship rides in to find a battlefield that already won itself. The wreckage stretches further than he expected. He calls for Bastian, Alexa, Casaro. They come, and he wants to understand what he's looking at. Where did the ants go? What happened here? Vanquished, they tell him. Every last one. No casualties on their side. He looks at them like the words didn't land correctly the first time, because they couldn't have that kind of outcome. Against that many, with that few people, he's never managed it himself and he knows it. The thought sits uncomfortably as his men tell him, almost proudly, that their girl is something else entirely, that she'll make a fine second master one day. He's still turning it over when her voice reaches him. Letitia, calm as still water, already watching him, while he stands there in the middle of everything she built and quietly tries to figure out what she actually is. He walks toward her and stops. Not the lord of the castle in the moment, just a man who understands what he owes. He bends down to her level, and when he speaks, it carries the full weight of someone who doesn't say things he doesn't mean. His family owes her more lives than her family ever owed them. And he thanks her genuinely for protecting what's his. Letitia meets it simply. The people here matter to her. She didn't want them hurt. That's all there is to it. It's such a small answer for something so large, and somehow that makes it land harder. Later, behind closed doors, Erdin turns the question over like a stone he can't put down. Does Casaro think she's a witch? Casaro, unbothered, asks what witches actually do. Erdin tells him, they feast on people, they do magic. And Casaro looks at him with the patience of someone who has served this family a very long time and asks, plainly, if his lordship genuinely believes the girl who arrived here trembling like a leaf is the same kind of creature, Erdin concedes. But the question of where she gets it from, all that knowledge, that instinct, that impossible certainty stays with him. Casaro's verdict is simple. If she is a witch, she's theirs, and she's a good one. He even laughs when Erdin floats his theory about where she might have learned it all, shaking his head like the idea is too much. Then he reminds his lordship it's late. Tomorrow is a big day. Erdin goes still. Tomorrow is the engagement. Casaro watches him process that and says what they're both already feeling. A lot is about to change. Though, if he's being honest, he thinks the changes already started. Morning arrives and Letitia stands in the middle of preparations that are anything but small. The maids keep reassuring her, it's just a formality, a small ceremony. The real wedding comes later when she's of age. Nothing to be nervous about. She hears them. She also sees the spread laid out before her and quietly disagrees with every word they've said. What she does agree with is that she's hungry. She reaches for the food and Casaro appears from nowhere to stop her. The feast food won't taste right yet, he tells her. Not time. She stares at him with the full weight of someone who has eaten his cooking and cannot fathom how anything from his hands could disappoint, but he just smiles and tells her she'll understand soon enough. The ceremony begins when Erdin arrives. She wonders, somewhere in the back of her mind, if he'll wear the mask today. He does. He reaches for her, and his voice is softer than she expects. Just a little longer, it'll be over soon, bear with it. And she looks at him and thinks, not for the first time, how strange it is. How gentle he is with her, how hard he seems to be on himself. There's no time to sit with that thought. The ceremony pulls them forward. Erdin, son of Elias and Leonora, declares it before everyone. He accepts Letitia, daughter of Grey, as the future second master of Holstead. 10 years of pledges, sealed. And then the snow begins to fall. Except it isn't snowing. Erdin watches the flakes drift down with quiet wonder. Crunchy, he thinks. Not too salty. The purest salt in the world. The North doesn't throw petals or confetti to mark something sacred. It throws salt, clean and white, catching the light like something celestial on its way down. Letitia stares up at it and the word that comes to her is magic. Erdin's voice finds her gently. She might think the North is nothing but cold and barren, but it has beautiful things too. Moments like this. Before she can answer, her name reaches her from somewhere nearby, and it's different now. Letitia Grey Holstead. She turns, and Erdin tells her, with the North's salt still falling around them, that she is now a member of this family. Officially. Welcome to the land of the North. The door swings open, and the first thing Letitia sees is darkness going down. A dungeon. It has to be a dungeon. Erdin extends his hand toward her, his voice calm as he tells her this is the final stage of the ceremony. Fear wraps around her chest even as her hand finds his, because somehow, impossibly, it always does. She follows him down the stairs with her mind running wild, cycling through every terrible possibility. Why are they going down? What's at the bottom? And more pressingly, is this where she finally gets sacrificed? Because if that's the plan, she would very much like to eat some of the feast food first, before she becomes part of the menu herself. Only this girl. Then she sees the knife and all pretense collapses. She can't hold it together anymore. The fear spills out of her completely. She wants to know if he's going to end her right now. She's convinced she's about to be offered up and cooked for the very feast she wasn't allowed to eat from, and no amount of gentle reassurance from Erdin can cut through the spiral she's already in. She pushes him away mid-attempt, overwhelmed and unraveling, demanding to know what the point of an engagement even is if he planned to dispatch his fiancée this quickly. He waits. Then, carefully, he explains. The pledge has to be burned at the altar. That's all this is. The last stage, nothing more. He holds up a copy of it so she can see it with her own eyes, and she stares at it, visibly recalibrating, then immediately asks why he brought out the dagger. To cut, to burn, to fulfill. The moment it's done, the pledge between their families is complete. The tension drains out of her slowly. She didn't know, she admits, with the quiet sheepishness of someone who just made a scene in a sacred family chamber. Erdin says nothing about it. He simply reaches up and removes his glove, and Letitia's mind goes somewhere else entirely. What if there are scales underneath? What if it's a hoof, goat-like, furry, straight out of the illustrated bestiaries she devoured in her past life? What if? His hand is flawless. Smooth, elegant, undeniably, almost unfairly beautiful. She's never seen anything quite like it, and she's staring, fully staring, completely forgetting herself, until the dagger comes down and he draws it cleanly across his palm. She spins away like she's the one who got cut. He asks what's wrong. She tells him not to mind, facing the wall, one hand pressed to her chest. It's just a hand. A beautiful, irreplaceable hand, and he just... The pledge hits the fire and curls into nothing. Done, he tells her, fulfilled. But there's one more thing. He produces a key, and Letitia watches curiously as he leads her deeper still. Just a little further down, he tells her, and she'll see the family's treasure house. The space that opens up around them feels almost sacred, a statue of an angel on one side, a devil on the other, standing eternal guard. She finds herself wondering quietly if they're meant to represent his parents. If the devils that haunt this land are the same ones responsible for them. Then he shows her what they came for. The Great Book of Secrets. Even the title carries weight. It was written by a great sage, someone who actually defeated devils, long ago, who summoned them once himself and paid dearly for it, before turning the tide entirely and bending them to his will one by one. Letitia listens, genuinely drawn in, and then asks the obvious. If this sage was so powerful, why are there still so many devils roaming the north? Because one day he simply vanished, Erdin tells her. No warning, no farewell. It was as if he had never existed at all. But before he disappeared, he wrote everything down. Every method, every secret, every hard-won victory against the darkness. All of it, captured in the book standing before them now. This copy is old, damaged. Whole sections have gone missing entirely, and what remains is written in cryptogram that no one has ever been able to decipher. But if someone could read it, if someone could unlock what's inside, the North might finally have a way to fight back. That's why he brought her here. Letitia turns to him and asks why her, genuinely puzzled. He answers simply, because of everything she already knows. If anyone could make sense of something this impossible, it might be her. She almost laughs. Her incredible knowledge, her vast wisdom. The truth, which she keeps entirely to herself, is that most of what she knows comes from cooking instant noodles over a butane stove in a previous life. Hardly the biography of a great sage. She genuinely doesn't want to disappoint him, can see already that he's placed something real in this hope, and the thought of letting him down sits uncomfortably in her chest. Still, she hesitates. It's his family's treasure. Is it really all right for her to touch it? He looks at her steadily and reminds her that she's his family too. She has no answer for that. She turns back to the book, telling herself firmly not to get his hopes up, that this could be any ancient language. That there's absolutely no reason to think she'd be able to read a cryptogram written centuries ago in a fantasy world. She opens it, and her breath catches. Korean! The entire thing is written in Korean. The laugh that escapes her is involuntary, almost disbelieving, and she starts reading aloud before she's fully processed how absurd this moment is. Erdin goes still beside her, and she can feel it even through the mask, the way his eyes sharpen with something urgent and alive. He tells her to go on, and she does. In pandemonium, beyond the furthest reaches of the north, live devils, evil, cunning, and nearly impossible to defeat. She reads it like it's the most natural thing in the world. To her, it is. To him, it's the first time in his life these words have meant anything at all. The sage, she continues, defeated them not through raw power alone, but through objects carried from another world. Things the devils had never encountered, couldn't anticipate, couldn't defend against. Letitia pauses on that quietly. The great sage brought items from wherever he came from. And unlike her, she suspects he wasn't reborn into this world. He crossed into it carrying everything he knew. Erdin wants to know where those items could possibly be found. Somewhere else, the book says. Not here. He wonders briefly if it means hell, and she almost smiles. It's more like hell than he knows, she tells him, but not quite. The next passage clarifies that the items were never the real weapon. The strategy was. She turns the page, eager to find out more, but the next section is too damaged to read, whole passages swallowed by age and decay. She moves to the back instead, and what she finds there stops her completely. The real devildom, it reads, is the modern capitalist society. She stares at that for a moment. The human race had committed so many evils of its own that the sage, having lived his entire life surrounded by them, simply knew how to fight monsters. He had trained for it without ever meaning to. The devils here, with all their cunning, were no match for someone who had already survived something worse. Erdin asks what it means, and she finds herself translating more than just the words. The world the sage came from was full of people far more ruthless than any devil this land has ever produced. That's where the strategy came from. Not from magic, not from power, from experience. From living in a world that sharpened him into something the devils couldn't understand. The next page is blank. Whatever came after is gone forever. Erdin turns to look at her, and the word he uses is amazing. She starts to deflect. She can just read, that's all. It's not that remarkable, but he's already moving forward. Already building something in his mind. A rare talent. A gift. Perhaps she is the great sage of the South, he muses, since she came from the capital. She tells him firmly that she isn't. He looks at her, patient and waiting. She hesitates, stares at him, and then, quietly, she tells him the truth. That the book is written in the language she spoke in her previous life. That she remembers it, all of it. The silence that follows isn't heavy, but careful. He asks if she's told anyone else. She hasn't. And without a pause, without deliberation, he tells her it stays between them. For the rest of his life, it goes nowhere. The relief that moves through her is immediate and deep. He's not going to hand her over to the temple. He's not going to treat her like something dangerous. She's his family now, he reminds her, and the Holsteads protect their own. She thanks him and means it completely. Then he tells her it's only fair that he share something back. She starts to say he doesn't have to, but he's already reaching for something small, impossibly beautiful, catching the light like a frozen tear. The Tear of Troy, he calls it. An artifact, recovered from the remains of the Ant Queen she brought down. It carries the power of oblivion. He explains what artifacts are magic stones, essentially. Each one different, each one extraordinary. Every great estate holds one as its foundation, the very heart of its power. Families rise and fall over them. Wars are started for them. She listens, and then asks the natural question. Does Holstead have one? He looks at her. Yes, he says. He is the artifact. His heart is the source of everything this castle holds. The weight of that lands slowly. 15 years old. And his heart is literally keeping this castle standing. She thinks back to the attack, to how the beast seemed emboldened while he was away, and suddenly it makes a terrible kind of sense. The castle's power had simply been quieter without him inside it. He goes on. His ancestors embedded the artifacts into their own bodies to fight the devils, and they succeeded, but the cost passed down through every generation after them. The appearance, the mask, everything he hides. That's where it comes from. And yet, he can identify any artifact on instinct alone. Name it, know its power, understand it completely the moment it's near him. After his parents were gone, he made himself a promise. He would defeat every devil, drive them out entirely. But the years between then and now have been humbling. Protecting this single castle has taken everything he has. The dream of a grieving child, he calls it, with a quietness that aches. But then he looks at her. With her, maybe it doesn't have to stay a dream. He will defeat the devils. He will give her a better life, one she actually deserves. And once he has, once this world is something worth living in freely, he'll divorce her. He's already planned it out, the entire arc of her future, neat and decided and completely without her input. She stares at him. He's mapped out her whole life and didn't even think to ask about her retirement, she mutters. Then, more honestly, why? Why does he want to make the world better at all? What does he actually want to protect? People, he says simply. The ones who are vulnerable, overlooked, quietly extraordinary in ways the world never bothers to notice. He wants to build something safer for them. That's the whole reason. And to do it, he needs to travel. Far. And for a long time, collecting every remaining copy of the Great Book of Secrets. She asks how long. He doesn't know. It could be very long. The words settle over her, and somewhere beneath the surface, something old and familiar stirs. Alone. Again. Waiting. Again. The same four walls. The same silence. The same careful distance she's always kept between herself and hope. She knows exactly what that feels like. The way time moves when no one is reaching for you. The way you start building walls just to have something solid to stand against. She thinks of the apple he placed in her hands without fanfare. She thinks of the staircase, and how her hand found his even when she was afraid. She has spent so much of her life waiting, dwelling, counting her misfortunes like they were something worth keeping. And for what? Her hand moves before the thought is fully formed. She reaches out and takes his. Bring her the book, she tells him. She's not waiting anymore, not this time. She's coming with him. He hesitates, looks at her for a long moment, and then he says he will. Letitia does not say another word. She simply holds on as they walk out together. The hall is already deep into celebration, loud and completely unrestrained. Casaro greets them with a wide grin and tells them they are late. Letitia's stomach makes its feelings known immediately. The food is right there, laid out beautifully in every direction, and she is so hungry she can practically feel her soul leaving her body just looking at it. She reaches forward, mouth already watering. And Bastian grabs them both by the arm and pulls. Bedtime, he announces. It is late, they are children, and children need proper sleep. Letitia turns to him with the full devastation of someone who has not eaten all day. Erdin, with remarkable solidarity, asks if he genuinely has to go too. Neither protest makes any difference. The others laugh and wave them off warmly as the two of them get dragged away from the feast they never got to touch. What would you even do? Later, sitting quietly at the edge of her bed, Letitia turns Erdin's words over slowly in her mind. She cannot explain why hearing them from him felt the way it did. He is just so genuinely kind. And then there is his hand, the memory of it surfacing without permission. Such a beautiful hand, kept hidden without a second thought. She had been so swept up in the Korean writing that she never stopped to think about it. She sits with it now. Morning finally delivers everything the night refused to. The food is extraordinary, genuinely the best meal she has had since her reincarnation. She settles into it fully, letting herself enjoy every single bite. Then she hears Erdin's voice from across the room. He is speaking with his grandmother's, and what she catches makes her pause mid-chew. He is leaving today. This very afternoon, already prepared, already decided. They had suspected something was coming after watching him take Letitia down to the shrine, but nobody expected it this soon. She listens carefully. Even he does not know how long the journey will take. The men carry their worry openly. What happens to the castle while he is gone? Another attack? Another moment where everything teeters. Erdin places the Tear of Troy on the table and lays out his plan. The artifact holds two powers, oblivion and disguise, and suddenly the entire giant ant situation makes complete sense. That is exactly how the colony stayed hidden for so long. Now Erdin intends to turn that same power outward. Holstead will vanish from the memory of every living creature beyond its walls. No location, no name, no existence. As long as the artifact holds, the castle simply will not exist to the outside world. Nobody argues. He wants the men to have real peace, the kind where they stop bracing for the next fight and simply live. The tears that fill their eyes are slow and quiet. They used to know him as the small boy buried in stories about bunnies, and somewhere between then and now he became this. Casaro, true to himself, cuts through the emotion entirely to ask how Erdin plans to survive out there without a decent chicken dish. Then Letitia walks away, and the room feels it immediately. Erdin notices the moment she moves. She is upset, and that alone tells him he is in trouble even if the reason escapes him completely. A fiancé who announces he is leaving the morning after his own engagement. Bastian moves to reassure him, promising to make sure Letitia is all right. They say their farewells and Erdin turns toward what is waiting beyond these walls. Watching him prepare to leave does something to Letitia that last night did not. Last night there were words and warmth and everything they shared in that basement. This morning there is only the reality of him actually going. He is 15 years old, carrying more than most grown men ever will, and still somehow the kindest person she has met in either of her lives. She turns and walks back to her room. The door swings open hard. She crosses to the bed and reaches for something. So yeah, this departure already feels wrong from the very beginning. The carriages are prepared, the knights are ready, and his lordship is finally about to leave the castle. But honestly, nobody here is acting like this is some normal little trip. The atmosphere is painfully heavy, almost like everyone already senses that once he leaves, nothing will ever truly be the same again. His grannies especially are not taking this well at all. The poor men keep reminding him over and over to return home immediately if anything dangerous happens. Even if he only lasts a single day outside, they do not care. Forget the books, forget the mission, forget everything else. They just want him alive. Fair enough, because this entire journey already smells like disaster waiting to happen. Still, Erdin tries to reassure them calmly. He promises everything will be all right, acting far more composed than everyone around him. But then again, this man always carries that terrifyingly calm expression whenever he is about to walk into danger, and somehow that only makes the situation feel worse. Then we have Letitia standing quietly at a distance, and oh, our girl is clearly struggling here. She does not look happy in the slightest. While everyone else is openly emotional, she just stands there silently trying to keep herself together. And somehow that hurts even more to watch. Erdin notices her immediately and walks over to apologize for leaving so suddenly. He gently tells her to take care of the castle while he is away, and to make sure she stays healthy and safe together with everyone else. Then he says something that honestly feels like a knife to the heart. If she ever wishes to leave the castle, she is free to go whenever she wants. And Letitia? Absolutely not. She has no intention of leaving that place behind. In her mind, there is only one thing she wants to do: stay there and wait for him to return. Wildly devoted behavior, honestly, but also painfully sweet. So instead of giving some dramatic speech, she quietly hands him a knot of blessing she made herself. Now listen, this tiny little knot ends up carrying way more emotional weight than anyone realizes at that moment. Everyone watches silently as Lord Erdin finally leaves with his men, and the narration itself practically screams doom over the entire scene. His lordship walks forward with empty eyes and unwavering resolve, fully prepared to step onto a path already stained with blood. Yeah, not safe at all. After he leaves, the grannies begin placing the artifact back into position. Meanwhile, Letitia remains near the castle gate, staring far into the distance without saying a single word. That image alone is heartbreaking. She looks like someone trying desperately to hold on to the final trace of a person who is already disappearing from reach. But here's the thing. Even though it feels like everyone is being abandoned, they are not truly alone. They are not wandering aimlessly either. They are simply waiting for the right moment. Then, suddenly, Letitia rushes up the stairs and pushes through the crowd, waving goodbye to Erdin. The artifact is finally placed correctly, and a massive light floods the entire area. And at that exact moment, all she wants is to see him one last time. You can practically feel the desperation building inside her. She tries to gather the courage to call out to him before he disappears forever, and when she finally does, Erdin actually stops and turns around. But oh, this part is cruel. From his perspective, there is absolutely nothing there, just an empty field stretching into the distance. Because in an instant, the castle vanishes completely. Yeah, gone. The artifact erases the castle from the memories of the outside world so perfectly that nobody beyond its borders will even remember it exists. Honestly, imagine how horrifying that is. A whole place, an entire home, simply wiped away like it never mattered. Some of Erdin's men immediately begin panicking, wondering if they themselves will eventually forget the castle too. That is a terrifying question because how exactly do you return home to a place your own mind cannot remember? But Erdin remains calm once again. He reminds them that even if everyone else forgets, he will not. And according to him, that little nod of blessing Letitia gave him is the reason why. 7 years later, a carriage slowly approaches another castle, and right away the atmosphere feels strange again. The beasts guarding the entrance stare suspiciously at the approaching vehicle, almost as if something about it feels oddly familiar. But no matter how much they think about it, they cannot place where they may have seen it before. As the carriage approaches the gate, the guards immediately stop it and demand to know which estate the travelers belong to and why they are entering the territory of Duke Belair. Before things can escalate, Casaro suddenly yells from inside the carriage that they are only here for the night market and should be allowed inside already. This man sounds deeply offended that anyone would dare delay him in this freezing weather. But the guards are not backing down today. They insist on checking the carriage first, since that is standard procedure before allowing visitors through the gate. Casaro keeps complaining dramatically, clearly trying to avoid the inspection somehow, but the guards stay firm. And for devils, these people are surprisingly professional. Then, inside the carriage, sitting quietly the entire time, is Letitia. Yeah, 7 years later and our girl is still here. The guard carefully confirms the number of passengers before asking where they came from. And suddenly the entire atmosphere shifts again, because nobody inside the carriage wants to say the name out loud. The place has already faded into the past, forgotten, buried. But then Letitia calmly breaks the silence and answers with a single word, Holstead. And just like that, the forgotten name returns once more. So, the moment Letitia calmly says Holstead, the guard surprisingly does not react much to it at all, which honestly should already feel suspicious. A whole castle name gets dropped so casually, yet the man barely thinks twice before allowing the carriage through the gate. But then things immediately start getting weird. Later on, the guard's partner comes over and casually asks him where the visitors came from. Simple question, right? Except the first guard suddenly freezes because when he checks his notepad, the name is gone completely. And this man knows he wrote it down just moments ago. Now he is standing there confused out of his mind while his partner waits for an answer. So instead of admitting he somehow forgot, he quickly makes up a random name and calls it Wisen Castle. Honestly, the artifact is working overtime at this point because what even is happening anymore? Meanwhile, inside the estate, Letitia is completely distracted by the beauty of the place. She expected the land of the devils to look dark, horrifying, cursed, and probably covered in skulls or something dramatic like that. Instead, the place is lively and beautiful. Nothing about it feels creepy at all. Our girl gets so absorbed in looking around that she practically starts speed walking through the market, leaving poor Casero struggling to keep up behind her, and this man is not happy about it. He keeps complaining while carrying bags and trying not to lose sight of her every 5 seconds. Eventually, he tells her to be more careful because she scared the life out of him earlier when she casually blurted out the name Holstead in front of the guards. For a moment, he genuinely felt his soul leave his body. But Letitia stays calm about it. According to her, the artifact should handle everything anyway, so there is nothing to worry about. Yeah, about that. Our girl has absolutely no idea that the artifact's effects are already beginning to weaken. The tension here is so good because the danger is quietly building in the background while she still thinks everything is under control. The two continue wandering around the night market, which, by the way, only opens once every year, so naturally everyone is trying to enjoy it while they can. But underneath all the excitement, there is still this heavy sadness following them everywhere, because it has officially been 7 whole years since Erdin left, and nobody has heard a single thing about him. No letters, no news, absolutely nothing. Time itself feels painfully frozen for everyone waiting back at the castle. Letitia cannot stop wondering what happened to him. Is he hurt somewhere? Is he still alive? Is he desperately trying to return home? Nobody knows. And that uncertainty is probably worse than hearing bad news. Soon Casaro returns, carrying an absurd amount of heavy bags. The man is basically turning into a walking grocery store at this point. Letitia offers to help him, but of course he immediately refuses because apparently he still believes he has enough energy to sweep through the entire estate by himself. Classic stubborn behavior. But then the narration quietly reveals something interesting. Recently, everyone back at Holstead has started preparing for something without even realizing it. Casaro keeps buying extra ingredients. Bastian is reorganizing Erdin's library. Alexa is supervising renovations around the castle. It is almost like the entire castle unconsciously believes Erdin is finally coming home soon. That little detail hurts in the best way possible. At the same time, their anxiety keeps growing because the tier of Troy is steadily weakening. The protection surrounding Holstead is no longer as strong as before, and the closer it gets to breaking, the more dangerous everything becomes. Then, while passing through the market, a trader suddenly catches Letitia's attention, and this part is honestly such a fun little shift in tone. Because sitting right there is a candy bar from her previous life. Immediately she grabs one, completely stunned, and starts wondering where on earth these things even come from. But before she can properly process it, the trader instantly demands payment and tells her that touching merchandise means buying it. And wow, this man is aggressive. Letitia gets visibly irritated and quickly hands over the money before taking a bite to see if it still tastes the same. Now, here comes the really interesting part. Rumors say these strange products arrive through some mysterious portal. Some call it a door, others call it a storehouse, but nobody truly understands what it is or where it connects to. The moment Letitia hears this, her thoughts immediately spiral toward one thing. Instant noodles. Forget ancient mysteries and magical secrets for a second because our girl just wants modern snacks again. And somehow that tiny thought makes her feel even more human after everything she has gone through. But then the mood suddenly shifts hard. Nearby, several devils begin arguing loudly about a castle that supposedly vanished into thin air 7 years ago. One of them cannot understand how nobody remembers Holstead anymore, despite it clearly existing in the past. The second Letitia hears the name, her eyes widen in shock. Casaro immediately notices her reaction and quietly tells her they need to leave right now, because this is bad. The devils continue arguing among themselves while the tension keeps rising. One of them mentions hearing rumors years ago about a tiny bride who married into some strange family and later turned out to be connected to the great devil herself. According to the story, she even wiped out an entire pack of evil beasts. Some dismiss the story immediately, saying only idiots would believe gossip spread by imps. But one devil refuses to let it go. He insists there must be some massive power affecting everyone's memories across the land. Otherwise, there is no explanation for why nobody remembers Holstead properly anymore. Then another devil jokingly asks why he is so emotionally invested in all this anyway. And oh boy, this is where things suddenly become very personal. The man removes his cap dramatically and asks if they finally recognize him. Turns out he is the strongest warrior among the stone golems of Velosa. Immediately, the others recognize him and start laughing, teasing him about being humiliated years ago by a certain lord near Velosa. Apparently, the disgrace was so legendary that the poor man had to disappear into the outer regions for intense training afterward. The embarrassment clearly traumatized him because this man has not moved on. He angrily reveals that the lord who disgraced him was none other than the lord of Holstead Castle himself. That is exactly why it infuriates him that nobody remembers the place anymore. This man has spent 7 years holding on to pure hatred. According to him, his tribe has endured brutal training all this time just waiting for the perfect opportunity to get revenge. He plans to join forces with the Centuria from Velasa and attack Holstead once they reach the Spider Tomb. Then this man dramatically slams his drink onto the table while describing exactly what he plans to do to Erdin once they meet again. And right in the middle of his angry rant, he suddenly notices a familiar carriage nearby. Then he sees Casaro and instantly recognizes him. Inside the carriage, Letitia's mind is already racing nonstop because none of this is making sense anymore. The artifact is supposed to erase every trace of Holstead from people's memories, so how exactly does that stone-headed warrior still remember the castle after all these years? That realization is terrifying. The man spent 7 whole years away in some remote outer region, completely separated from the rest of the world, which means he most likely returned only after the Tier of Troy had already started weakening. And if the artifact's power is declining enough for memories to slowly return, then Holstead's biggest protection is basically crumbling right before their eyes. Meanwhile, there is still absolutely no news about Erdin. Nothing. At this point, the silence surrounding him feels heavier than ever, because now the castle is facing a possible attack without its strongest protector anywhere in sight. Letitia starts thinking through every possible outcome, and our girl's brain is moving fast here. Since the artifact is still partially active, Kurax and his forces cannot locate Holstead directly yet. That means the castle still has a temporary advantage, but temporary is the scary part, because the Tier of Troy could fail completely at any moment. So now they are trapped between 2 terrible choices. Either they sit back and wait for the enemy to eventually discover them, or they attack first. Neither option sounds safe in the slightest. Still, Letitia remembers hearing about the Spider Tomb and immediately begins analyzing the terrain in her head. The place is apparently built like a giant maze full of narrow paths where only a few people can pass through at once. Large troops would struggle badly inside there. In other words, a perfect elimination trap. Honestly, this is the exact moment you realize how much she has changed over the past 7 years. Our girl is no longer just reacting emotionally to situations anymore. She is actually strategizing like a proper ruler. But at the same time, she also realizes how hopeless the situation could become if they do nothing. Once the artifact fully wears out, the castle will inevitably be exposed anyway. So simply hiding and praying is basically another form of suicide. Letitia clenches her fist tightly while forcing herself to think calmly. Fear is useless right now. Panic solves absolutely nothing. This next part quietly becomes one of the biggest growth moments for her character. During the past 7 years, she has spent her time studying the Great Book of Secrets repeatedly, along with countless books from Erdin's library. She now understands the civilization of high-ranking devils, the habits of lower beasts, and the nature of creatures across different territories. Basically, while everyone else was frozen in anxiety waiting for Erdin's return, Letitia was unknowingly preparing herself for this exact kind of crisis. Then another thought suddenly clicks into place. Nobody seems to know Erdin is currently absent from Holstead, and immediately Casero's earlier idea begins sounding far more realistic. If the enemy believes Erdin is still inside the castle, then maybe they can exploit that fear before the stone golems fully organize themselves. Besides, northern evil beasts like stone golems are known for being quick-tempered and not exactly famous for intelligence. Yeah, our girl is officially cooking up something dangerous. Back at Holstead Castle, news about Carax's return spreads rapidly through the estate. Everyone understands the situation immediately. Technically, they could remain hidden and hope their enemies eventually give up searching. But there is one massive problem. Nobody knows exactly when the Tier of Troy will completely run out of power, and if that happens before they prepare themselves, they are finished. Carax is already preparing to attack, so sitting around doing nothing would basically mean waiting patiently for defeat to arrive at their doorstep. The problem is that Holstead simply does not have enough soldiers or weapons for a full-scale battle. The castle was never prepared for an outright war like this. Then, Letitia suddenly proposes an idea. And wow, the moment she explains it, everyone's expressions change immediately, because somehow the plan sounds both incredibly risky and ridiculously clever at the same time. The others stare at her in shock, wondering how such a devilish strategy even entered her mind in the first place. The narration answers that question perfectly. Who else could come up with such a ruthless idea besides someone raised in a modern capitalist society? That line is really hilarious and terrifying at the same time because you suddenly remember Letitia still carries the mindset of someone from another world entirely. But even with the plan ready, there is still one terrifying possibility hanging over them. If things go wrong, they could either expose the location of Holstead completely or trigger a direct battle immediately. So preparations begin at once. The villagers are warned not to leave the castle. Emergency food supplies are prepared. Weapons are distributed. Everyone starts bracing themselves for the worst. Still, Bastion remains worried because even if they manage to strike the Centuria before they reunite with Carax, these are not ordinary enemies. They are hundreds of highly trained stone golems. Fair concern because those things sound absolutely horrifying, but Letitia refuses to back down. Waiting for the enemy to unite would only make the situation even more dangerous later anyway. At least now they still have a small chance to disrupt them first. Besides, they are all desperately hoping the stone golems are exactly as dumb as their reputation suggests, which honestly is a very risky thing to gamble your survival on. Even so, Letitia declares that regardless of the danger, she still has a duty to fulfill, protecting Holstead, its people, and the home Erdin left behind. Then she asks everyone if they are truly in this together, and thankfully, they all agree. So with the plan finally set into motion, she leaves to prepare herself. But here comes the painful realization nobody around her fully notices yet. For the past 7 years, Letitia has been quietly carrying an enormous burden completely alone. Later, while alone with her thoughts, her confidence finally begins cracking a little. She starts wondering if this entire plan is actually reckless insanity. Because the truth is painfully simple. She is not Erdin. She cannot fight like him. She cannot overpower enemies the way he does. That fear is probably eating her alive right now. Still, despite all her doubts, one thing remains certain in her heart. She has responsibilities she cannot abandon. Even if it costs her life before she even reaches her 19th birthday, she refuses to let Holstead fall into enemy hands. And wow, that line hits hard. For a moment, she wonders whether she is truly capable of protecting everyone at all. But eventually, she forces herself to stop overthinking because there is no more time left for fear. She decides she will face whatever comes head-on. No matter what happens, she will protect the castle until Erdin finally returns. Then early the next morning, Letitia sets out together with the grannies and several others to search for the stone golems before they can regroup. As they move through the forest, Bastion asks whether she actually knows where the enemies are hiding. Letitia calmly explains her reasoning. If the golems already passed through the spider tomb, then they most likely just arrived in this forest recently. Beyond this point, there are very few places large enough to conceal creatures of their size. Meaning, the enemy has to be somewhere nearby. And suddenly, voices echo through the woods. One of the stone golems notices them first and peeks through the trees. Immediately, the creature looks shocked seeing actual humans standing there. The size of these monsters is insane. They are far larger than anyone imagined. Even Carax apparently was not this massive. The golems quickly begin questioning whether a human village exists nearby and whether these humans are the exact targets Carax warned them about. Then one calls for the others. And just like that, more and more gigantic stone golems begin emerging from the forest until Letitia's group finds themselves completely surrounded. So now Letitia and the others are completely surrounded by massive stone golems. This situation looks unbelievably bad at first glance. The creatures immediately begin discussing among themselves what they should do with the humans standing before them. Some suggest eliminating them immediately, while others continue arguing back and forth like a group of oversized idiots trying to decide what to eat for dinner. And right in the middle of all that chaos, Letitia suddenly raises her hand and signals for them to stop talking. Yeah, our girl really has some nerve, because who does that while surrounded by giant enemy monsters? Naturally, the golems are stunned by her boldness. They stare at her in disbelief and demand to know who exactly she thinks she is to interrupt and command them so casually. But then they notice something strange. The humans standing behind her are all bowing respectfully toward her, and immediately the golems begin second-guessing themselves. You can practically see the tiny wheels struggling to turn inside their rocky heads. Letitia silently prays everything goes according to plan before stepping fully into her role. Then she calmly announces that it has been ages since she took control of everyone at Holstead, including the Lord himself. According to her, these stone golems are nothing more than lowly beasts, yet somehow they still dare to behave insolently before the great devil herself. The golems instantly look at one another in confusion. Could she really be the great devil? The funniest part is how quickly they begin doubting themselves. Seeing hesitation appear on their faces, the others immediately join the performance and begin showering Letitia with exaggerated praise, hailing her as the great devil of the red flame. And somehow, it actually works. These dense creatures completely buy the act. Honestly, Erdin would probably lose his mind if he saw this nonsense happening in real time. Once the golems fully believe her identity, Letitia starts speaking like a bored ruler entertaining herself. She tells them she was delighted after finally hearing news of war again following 7 painfully quiet years, but now she is disappointed seeing them lingering around all day instead of advancing toward Holstead. The golems quickly explain that preparations are still ongoing and that the battle will begin soon enough. But apparently that answer is not good enough for our girl, because she claims she is getting bored and now requires entertainment immediately. Then she calls for Alexa to bring out the gold. The moment the heavy bag is opened, the eyes of the stone golems practically light up like children staring at treasure for the first time. Inside are 100 denayas, a ridiculous amount of money that most of them would never even dream of touching in their lifetime. Meanwhile, deep inside, Letitia is absolutely dying because this money is basically everything Holstead has left. Years of hard work, savings, and effort are sitting inside that bag. She silently prays Erdin forgives her for this reckless gamble, but of course she keeps that part hidden while maintaining her confident act. Instead, she arrogantly declares that someone as great as herself has no use for something as lowly as money, so she decides to have some fun with it instead. At this point, the golems are completely hooked. They eagerly lean forward, waiting to hear what kind of game she has in mind. This is where Letitia's modern capitalist brain truly enters villain mode. Knowing how absurdly greedy stone golems are, she carefully begins leading them straight towards self-destruction. She explains that whoever proves themselves worthy by defeating 5 Holstead soldiers will earn the entire reward. Immediately, the golems begin calculating the odds in their heads. 100 stone golems against only 5 soldiers? To them, this sounds like the easiest challenge imaginable. Sure, they find the setup a little suspicious, but greed crushes whatever tiny amount of intelligence they were trying to use. Eventually, they all agree. Meanwhile, the poor Holstead soldiers begin trembling nervously, because unlike the golems, they know this plan could go horribly wrong at any second. Letitia quietly apologizes to them before the battle starts. And just like that, the ridiculous performance begins. One golem charges aggressively toward a soldier, but before reaching him, the man suddenly falls dramatically onto the ground, pretending to lose. The golems are slightly surprised by how easy it is, but sincerely they are too blinded by greed to think deeply about anything anymore. All they can see is the gold waiting ahead. Soon 3 soldiers are already defeated, and the golems become even more excited. Then 4 soldiers fall one after another while Letitia loudly announces that only one final Holstead soldier remains before the winner can claim all 100 denayas. And boom, this is where the trap fully snaps shut. One golem suddenly declares that all the money belongs to him alone. The others pause immediately. Why should he take everything? Shouldn't the reward be shared equally? But then another realization hits them. If 100 denayas gets divided among all of them, each person would receive almost nothing useful. Suddenly, everyone starts getting greedy at the exact same time. The argument escalates unbelievably fast as they begin screaming over who deserves the money most. Meanwhile, Letitia is internally celebrating because her plan is working perfectly. Our girl just weaponized greed itself. Eventually, one golem decides the simplest solution is to eliminate the others entirely, so he can keep a larger share for himself. And just like that, the entire situation explodes into chaos. While the monsters continue arguing violently among themselves, the defeated Holstead soldiers quietly get back up and retreat from the area. But the golems are so consumed by greed that they do not even notice anymore. Instead of searching for the final soldier, they start attacking each other over money they have not even won yet. Then Casero suddenly yells from his hiding spot that he should be the one getting all the gold instead. And wow, that only makes everything worse. The stone golems completely lose their minds after hearing that. The battle among them becomes even more savage as giant bodies crash into each other and weapons swing wildly through the forest. Meanwhile, Letitia calmly leads the others away toward safety while reassuring everyone that the plan is succeeding. The golems continue fighting nonstop until eventually only one remains standing. Though standing is honestly generous because the survivor looks absolutely terrible. His body is covered in bruises, injuries, and cracks, while a sword remains painfully lodged through his back. Even so, the greedy fool still begins celebrating because, in his mind, all the money now belongs to him alone. Then he turns toward Letitia, expecting his reward. But our girl calmly crushes that fantasy immediately. She tells him there is no way that is happening. Then without hesitation, Letitia pulls out a bow and arrow and points it directly at him. Before the golem even gets the chance to open his mouth, the arrow flies straight and clean, hitting him right in the head. And just like that, the massive stone body crumbles down into lifeless rubble. No second chances. No dramatic last words. Just instant silence. That kind of precision feels almost unreal coming from Letitia. For a brief moment, everything freezes. Then the tension snaps. The remaining Holstead soldiers suddenly realize what just happened and immediately erupt into celebration. They start praising Letitia like she just single-handedly ended a war, showering her with gratitude and relief. But what nobody sees in that moment is that she has been terrified all along. And that is when it hits her. The fear she had been holding down finally breaks loose. Letitia collapses to the ground and starts crying uncontrollably. The three men rush to her immediately, pulling her into their arms, and just like that, they all break down together. It is messy, emotional, and painfully human after everything they just survived. No victory speech, just relief mixed with fear finally spilling over. Later, once things calm down slightly, they all look at the remains of the stone golems, trying to make sense of what is left. A quiet question comes up. Did any of them escape? But the answer arrives quickly. When they gather the life stones from the golems' hearts, the count is exactly 100. All of them are gone. That realization hits heavy because it confirms just how absolute the outcome was. Letitia then notices something important. These life stones are valuable, extremely valuable in fact, and she immediately tells them to keep them safe. Bastien, still processing everything, suddenly shifts the mood by asking when exactly she learned archery. And oh, this part is interesting. Letitia casually explains that she asked Romina to teach her earlier so she could be useful in situations like this. She also mentions reading about how great Karahan lords lead from the front instead of hiding behind others during battle. So in her mind, this was simply her stepping into that idea of leadership, even if her hands were shaking the entire time. Soon after, they discover a messenger bird, likely the golem's method of communicating with Karax. They quickly retrieve and read the message, hoping to understand enemy movement or future plans. What they find is chilling. Karax is still actively searching for Holstead. Worse, he mentions noticing a carriage appearing and disappearing mysteriously, and now suspects the Great Devil might be involved in whatever is happening. So even without knowing the truth, Karax is already circling closer than ever. Letitia then asks Alexa how much time they have left before the Tear of Troy completely loses its power. Alexa estimates it is extremely short now, likely no more than 2 days. That is all that is left. The artifact is almost completely drained, and with the Centurion now eliminated, there is no buffer left between them and Karax's full forces. Which means the next stage is inevitable. Karax will come. And when he does, everything will be decided. As they return to Holstead, preparations for war begin immediately. Every single person, young and old, is involved. There is no hiding anymore, no pretending things are normal. The castle is openly preparing for an all-out battle because there is nothing left to delay it. Bastien later approaches Letitia carrying a set of armor for her, but she refuses it. Not because she does not need it, but because she believes she has to look unafraid, like someone who can be trusted to stand at the front without hesitation. So instead, she thanks him and reassures him that everything will be fine. But the truth behind her words is heavier than she lets on. Bastien then begins reflecting on the past 7 years. He remembers when Letitia first arrived at Holstead, so small she could barely reach his waist. She was only 12 at the time, yet looked even younger, likely due to malnutrition and hardship. Despite that fragile appearance, she ended up saving the entire estate. And since then, she has grown into someone completely different, someone stronger, but also someone they have all come to rely on far too much. Bastien, overwhelmed by emotion, suddenly starts expressing how special she is. He compares her strength to people like Erdin, who has been fighting battles since childhood, and says that despite appearances, truly extraordinary people often look the most vulnerable. Then his tone shifts. He pleads with her to promise that if she ever finds herself in danger, she will run away instead of standing her ground, but Letitia refuses immediately. She cannot abandon Holstead. She cannot just leave. With tears in his eyes, Bastien responds that they could always rebuild a castle, but they can never replace a person. Just like Erdin, who has been missing for so long, no one knows what could have happened to him. Losing both of them would be unbearable. That fear breaks him completely. Letitia tries to comfort him as he cries, and for a moment everything feels fragile again. Then sudden, a light appears. Everyone freezes instantly because they all understand what it means. The Tear of Troy has finally lost its power. The signal they have all been dreading has arrived. Immediately, the order is given for everyone to prepare. There is no time left. The castle can no longer remain hidden. The artifact cracks, and in that instant, Holstead is revealed to the world once again. Far in the distance, Karax has already been waiting for this exact moment. The second the castle appears, he raises his hand and commands his forces to prepare for attack, a satisfied smile spreading across his face. At the same time, Letitia holds onto Bastion for a brief moment before signaling everyone to move, and just like that, memory flashes through him of her as a child once again. Then they all step forward together, joining the others on the battlements, standing in silence as they gaze into the distance. That calm before the storm always hits differently. Letitia, standing on the battlements, calmly calls out to him and asks if he is looking for these, and in a single motion she reveals the stone life cores taken from the golem's hearts. The meaning is immediate. The Centuria are gone, completely wiped out. Karax and his men freeze for a split second as realization sinks in, and instead of relief, something far more unsettling replaces it. If the Centuria have truly been destroyed, then the only logical explanation is that the Lord of Holstead must have already formed a contract with the Great Devil. That thought spreads quickly among them, uneasy and sharp, because it does not make sense in the way they expected. And that is where doubt begins to creep in. If the Lady of Holstead is truly the Great Devil, then what exactly is the Lord of Holstead supposed to be? The question hangs heavily because everyone knows that once two parties form a contract, they are bound together. If one side is missing or separated, it creates an imbalance, a weakness that can be exploited. So now the invaders are forced to reconsider everything. Either they are being tricked, or Holstead is currently in a vulnerable state. Neither option feels safe, but hesitation is not something Karax allows for long. With a sharp command, he orders his forces to charge anyway. No Centuria, no backup. Just raw aggression toward the castle. And just like that, the full assault begins. Arrows rain down, cannons fire, but none of it is enough to stop Karax's forces. They push forward with terrifying speed, ignoring damage and obstacles as they close in on the walls. It quickly becomes clear that brute force is their only strategy, and unfortunately, it is working. One of the stone golems breaks through the front line and collides directly with Bastion. Before he can even react, the creature lifts him effortlessly, preparing to tear him apart in one brutal motion. But Casaro arrives just in time, intercepting the attack and bringing the golem down before it can finish the job. Bastion stumbles back to safety and immediately tries to recover his footing. Casaro glances at him and, instead of sympathy, throws a sharp question about whether he has lost his touch. Bastion brushes it off quickly, insisting he is simply getting warmed up, though the tension in his voice gives away that the situation is far more serious than he wants to admit. It has been a long time since they last fought like this, and it shows. Meanwhile, Alexa is already reaching his limit. Watching the invasion unfold pushes his into pure rage. Completely ignoring his condition and whatever warnings his body might be giving her, he decides that someone needs to teach these shameless intruders a lesson. Without hesitation, he calls upon the warriors of Holstead, ordering them to defend their home and their people. The command spreads instantly, and the castle that was already on edge finally erupts into full resistance. And just like that, the battle for Holstead shifts from preparation to full-scale war. So the battle has been raging all night, and by dawn, everyone is barely holding on. Karax and his men have been getting pushed back, surprisingly. The grannies, the villagers, everyone is fighting like survival itself is on the line. And somehow, they hold it together till morning. But morning comes with a cost. The people of Holstead are exhausted, completely drained. Letitia is covered in bruises, her body already giving out, but she's still standing. And Karax sees all of that, and just like that, he makes his move. He orders another attack. Panic spreads fast. The people of Holstead start pulling back, helping the injured, rushing into the castle. It's messy, urgent, no time to think, just move. Casaro tries to stand, clearly not okay, and Letitia runs to him. She's worried, of course. And he brushes it off just a scratch. Sure, if collapsing is now considered a scratch. But he doesn't dwell on it. He tells her they don't have a choice. They protect the castle, no matter what. Because outside, the beasts are relentless. They start slamming into the gates, over and over. The walls shake, the doors strain. It's obvious, this won't hold forever. Letitia knows it too. So she switches gears. Fast thinking. She asks about the dungeon, where it leads. When she hears it opens to the southeastern mountains, she doesn't hesitate. Orders start flying. Gather weapons, pack provisions, evacuate. Elderly and children first. No confusion, just action. Bastion stops her, asks the question everyone is thinking. What about you? And she doesn't even pretend. She stays. She'll leave only when everyone else is out. She pushes him to go, almost pleading now. Then comes the quiet pressure. She tries to buy time. Fires an arrow. Reaches for another. Nothing. No arrows left. And that realization lands hard. Bastion returns, says evacuation has started, tells her it's time to go. Too late. The gate gives way. The beasts break in. Letitia freezes. Her body shakes. The weight of everything finally catches up. And in that moment, she calls for Erdin. Soft. Apologetic. Like she already knows how this ends. Then something changes. A dragon appears. Massive. 2 pairs of wings. Everyone sees it and immediately recognizes it. The symbol of Holstead. Not just a creature, a sign. And right behind that moment, Erdin arrives. Out of nowhere on horseback. Like he's been waiting for the exact second everything almost falls apart. And now, everything shifts. So the moment the dragon appears, everything changes. And now it makes sense. Erdin is back. That's why the symbol of Holstead shows up in full glory. His lordship has returned. Kurek sees him and actually trembles. Just for a second though, because this man quickly gathers his pride like nothing happened. You can almost hear him thinking, no way this is real. But instead of backing down, he doubles down. The people of Holstead, on the other hand, don't hesitate. Seeing Erdin alive gives them a surge of strength. These exhausted, beaten people somehow find the will to fight again. And honestly, it's kind of beautiful. Kurax, still feeling himself, orders the beast to attack Erdin, calling him a little Holstead boy. And you already know, that kind of disrespect never ends well. Underestimating a lord who has already defeated you once? Dangerous move. Because Erdin doesn't waste time. Within seconds, most of Kurax's men are down. Not struggling, not dragging it out, just clean, efficient defeat. It's almost embarrassing how quickly the tide turns. Now it's just the two of them. Their swords clash, sharp and fast, and the fight is intense, but Erdin stays composed. Too composed. He even teases Kurax, pointing out that he's slower than before, and that one comment completely throws Kurax off balance. That's all it takes. Erdin strikes and pierces him cleanly. Kurax staggers, loses strength, and collapses to the ground. For a moment, it feels like it's over. But of course, it's never that simple. Out of nowhere, another beast charges from behind, aiming straight for Erdin. Letitia sees it just in time and calls out, saving him from a fatal hit. He turns to deal with it, but that split second opens a door, and Kurax takes it. He gets back up and attacks immediately, striking Erdin's mask and throwing him off balance. Before Erdin can fully recover, Kurax grabs him by the neck and lifts him up like it's nothing. And now it gets dark. You can feel the obsession in his voice. He's been waiting for this moment his entire life. Finally, the Lord of Holstead is in his hands, and he's ready to end it by crushing him completely. Letitia can't stand there and watch. She jumps onto a horse and rushes in, trying to save him. For a moment, it works. She disrupts Kurax, but she loses control and falls off hard, and now she's the one in danger. Kurax turns to her slowly, almost amused. He grabs her by the leg and lifts her upside down, calling her nothing but human trash, mocking the idea that she's anything special. It's cruel, deliberate, and honestly hard to watch. She struggles, fights back, but he's not even worried. He decides he'll kill her first, then deal with Erdin. And just when it feels like everything is about to go wrong, he jerks. A sword pierces through his shoulder. That one moment of shock is all Letitia needs. She reaches for the sword already lodged in him, grips it with everything she has left, and drives it through him with full force. No hesitation, no mercy, just raw determination. And this time, when Kurax falls, he stays down. And honestly, after everything he's done, that end feels exactly right. And just like that, within the blink of an eye, the great and untouchable Kurax is gone. Gone. For real this time. The same man who was just moments ago talking about crushing people like they're nothing is now lying there, defeated, silenced completely. And the shift is immediate. The beasts feel it. You can see the fear take over as they start backing away, murmuring among themselves that Kurax has been killed by the great devil. Yeah, let that sink in. Letitia, the one he called human trash. Now the reason they're running. Erdin doesn't even chase them. He simply tells them to run. Run far and never come back. And the way he says it? Calm, final, like there's no world where they'd dare disobey. Then he turns to Letitia and congratulates her. Simple, direct. But that's all it takes. Because the moment she hears that, she drops everything, literally throws the sword aside and runs to him. No hesitation, no holding back. After everything, after thinking she lost him. Yeah, she's not keeping her composure. She crashes into him, holding on tight like if she lets go, he might disappear again. It's been so long. Too long. All she wants in that moment is to stay right there and never let go. War tried to tear them apart, tried to erase everything, but somehow, they're still here, together. Tears just start falling, freely, no restraint, no shame. And they just hold each other like the world can wait for once. Even the grannies, standing at a distance, can't hold back their joy. After everything they've witnessed, this moment, it's earned. Then, morning comes, and everything is quiet. Letitia wakes up in her bed, a little confused, trying to piece things together. She doesn't even remember when she fell asleep. And then it hits her. Yeah, she cried herself into exhaustion. Completely drained. She already knows Bastion is going to have something to say about that. That's fair. But then she notices something strange. Her fingers are wrapped in clean dressings. Now she pauses. Because, who did that? She turns slightly, and there he is. Erdin. Right beside her bed, resting on his arms. Scissors, gauze, everything laid out. He's the one who treated her wounds. And now she's just staring. Because this doesn't feel real. After 7 years, he's just here. So she reaches out, slowly, like she's afraid he might vanish if she moves too fast. And then he grabs her hand and pulls her down. Quick, instinctive. He's startled, and immediately, he apologizes. Explains himself, says that in the dark land, he couldn't afford to let his guard down, not even in sleep. It became a habit. One, he's not going to shake off easily. And you can feel it, this distance, this slight awkwardness. 7 years is a long time. He's changed. Of course he has. But at the same time, he hasn't. He keeps apologizing, even bringing up yesterday. And that's when it hits her. She remembers hugging him, clinging to him like her life depended on it. And now she's embarrassed, deeply. Like, did I really do that? Erdin, completely unbothered, tells her he didn't expect her to still be there. He thought she had left long ago. So seeing her again, it genuinely surprised him. And more than that, it made him happy. You can see it in his eyes. Then he starts talking about her. And not casually, he's impressed. The way she charged into battle, fearless, riding straight at those monsters. He calls it breathtaking. He's proud of her, proud of how strong she's become. And that lands. She smiles, because right there, despite everything, he still feels like the same Erdin. She tells him the truth, that it was only possible because he had already brought Karax down, and she just couldn't stand watching him suffer like that. He shakes his head, gives her full credit, says she did incredibly well. They won. Completely. Without losing a single person. That's not small. Then she mentions the Great Book of Secrets. Says that's what made everything possible. But even as she talks, she keeps looking at him, taking him in. He's taller now. His voice is deeper. His whole presence has changed. But inside, he's still him. And then, like he's been waiting for this exact moment, he reaches for something. A book, carefully held. He hands it to her, and she already knows what it is before even opening it. The Great Book of Secrets. Complete. Finally. 7 years. That's how long Erdin disappears, all for one goal, to return with the complete copy of the Great Book of Secrets. And when Letitia realizes that, it hits differently. This isn't just a gift. This is sacrifice, patience, and everything he's endured poured into one moment. She's so happy it almost overwhelms her, so she grabs his hand tightly without even thinking. And that small touch pulls Erdin straight into the past. Back to their engagement party, back to that promise she made, that if he ever returned with the book, she would do everything she could to help him. And now here they are, 7 years later, standing in that exact promise. He can't stop looking at her, not even for a second. Like he's been waiting for this moment his whole life and still isn't sure it's real. He gently caresses her face, and for a second, everything slows down. Quiet. Soft. Just the two of them. And of course, someone walks in. Just like that, the moment breaks. They quickly pull apart and compose themselves as the man reports that the dragon is causing chaos again, biting people, refusing to calm down. So now, it's back to reality. Erdin heads out immediately, with Letitia following close behind, and he explains that they brought the dragon back from the Dark Land because they believe it lost its mother. Nobody expected it to be this difficult to handle. Then Letitia hears it. Baby dragon. And just like that, her entire focus shifts. They arrive to find this so-called baby already causing serious trouble. Angry, restless, snapping at anyone who gets close. Someone suggests maybe it's hungry, but they shut that down quickly. This creature already had 4 sheep and 2 cows for breakfast. So no, hunger isn't the problem. Letitia watches it closely and something clicks. This isn't just aggression. It feels familiar. It reminds her of the little cat she used to take care of in her previous life. The way it would lash out whenever it was locked in a cage before going to the vet. Same frustration, same resistance. And suddenly, she understands. The dragon isn't angry. It feels trapped. Before anyone can stop her, she walks straight toward it. No hesitation, no fear, just pure instinct. The dragon hisses and backs away, clearly not trusting her yet, but she doesn't react. Instead, she picks up some hay and starts using it like a toy, slowly trying to engage it. And somehow, it works. The tension eases, just enough. So she makes a bold call, remove the cage. You can feel everyone hesitate, but they listen anyway. She gently pats the dragon, reassuring it, calming it down, and little by little, the chaos fades. Meanwhile, everyone else is just staring, completely surprised by what they're witnessing. Letitia casually explains that dragons are intelligent creatures. If they aren't restrained or hurt, they won't become hostile. And she knows this because of everything she's studied. But of course, peace doesn't last long. Alexa suddenly rushes in, announcing trouble. Real trouble. They've intercepted a messenger bird from the stone golems on its way to Velasa, and the message it carries, it's bad. Very bad. Velasa is furious, and they're preparing to attack Holstead. Now everyone is confused. Karax is gone. The Centuria is no more. So how are they still this confident? Erdin quickly figures it out. They're not acting alone anymore. Other evil lords must have joined forces with them. And if that's true, then they don't have much time. Maybe a week before the attack begins. Now the pressure is back. Everyone starts thinking about defense, about how to survive what's coming. But Letitia, she's thinking ahead. She pauses, pieces everything together, and realizes something important. If the attack is happening in a week, that means their enemies haven't fully gathered yet, which means right now, at this very moment, they aren't stronger. And that changes everything. So she turns to Erdin and tells him it's her turn to give him a present. And this one isn't small. She's giving him Velosa Castle. Now everyone is confused, completely lost on how she plans to pull that off, but she doesn't explain right away. She just smiles, calm and confident, and reaches out to gently pat the dragon. And in that quiet little moment, you can already tell, she has a plan. And if it works, Erdin won't just be fighting on the ground anymore. He'll be ruling the skies. The next day, Letitia is outside trying to train the dragon, and it's not going well. She distracts it while Alexa and Casaro try to place a saddle, but the moment they do, the dragon jumps up and sends everything flying, including them. So yeah, that easy task she imagined. Not so easy. Erdin stops by and notices how serious she's been, even skipping meals just to be here. She admits it's been rough. They both watch as the others keep trying, but the dragon keeps slipping away like it can't be caught, except with her. With Letitia, it's calm. It follows her around and ignores everyone else. At this point, it's obvious. Why doesn't she just do it herself? Before that even settles, the dragon coils around her and hisses at Erdin. Clear message. It likes her, not him. Still, Erdin suggests she tries riding it. She hesitates, then goes for it. And it works. First try. Everyone cheers. So naturally, Erdin tries to get on too, and immediately the dragon gets upset. That's when Kaiden points it out. If the dragon only accepts someone when Letitia is there, then she'll have to be present in battle. Erdin doesn't like that. He helps her down and quietly says he doesn't want her in danger because of him. Then suddenly, the dragon hits him with its tail, pushing him forward. He stumbles close to her, too close, and with everyone watching, she panics a little and pushes him away. They both fall. Awkward. Erdin gets up, embarrassed, and walks off. She calls him, but he just says he has something to do. But it's obvious he's hurt. In his mind, this was bound to happen. Why would anyone want someone like him? A monster. Letitia realizes it too late, so she runs after him, catches him, and holds him tight. And this time, she doesn't hesitate. She tells him clearly, he's not a monster. Letitia doesn't let him walk away this time. She catches up and quickly tries to explain. Even with the mask on, Erdin can't hide it. He's hurt. Quiet, but it's there. So she tells him the truth. The real monsters are outside the castle. The ones attacking, destroying. That's what scares her. Not him. Never him. No matter how he looks. And now she's crying, not holding it back, not trying to stay composed. She admits she only pushed him away because everyone was watching. After what happened the day before, she felt self-conscious. She didn't want people talking or misunderstanding anything. And that reaches him. You can see it. Something softens. He kneels in front of her and asks her to say it again, that he doesn't scare her, and she does, without hesitation. He says he doesn't care, but hearing it from her makes him feel whole. She adds one more thing. She didn't want to embarrass him or make things awkward between them in front of others, trying to avoid misunderstanding, while already being his wife. Erdin reminds her of that. They're married, not children. There's nothing wrong with being close. And that realization hits her all at once. She really made it bigger than it needed to be. He thanks her for being kind, then says he has something to finish. She thinks it's just an excuse to leave, but it's not. He's actually writing their divorce papers. Because in his mind, she's grown now. Strong, independent, capable. She doesn't need to be tied to him anymore. It's time for her to move forward. And honestly, this is so him. Every time she gets close, he pulls back. Just when it feels like they're getting somewhere, he's already halfway out the door. But this time, Letitia doesn't just accept it quietly. She agrees, on one condition. They wait. Until after they conquer Velosa. He pauses, thinking that's all. It's not. She adds that she's going with him. To Velosa. No arguments. As the second master of the castle, she'll make her own decisions too, and that leaves him completely speechless. The next morning, far away at the Tomb of Spiders, the beasts are already talking. Karax is gone. The Centuria too, both defeated by the great devil of Holstead. There's fear in their voices, even as they try to reassure themselves. They say they now have support from other devil lords, that they still have a chance to win. But the doubt is there. You can hear it. Then, suddenly, voices, telling them to run, to escape while they still can. They look around, confused, and then they see her, Letitia, riding the dragon. And in that moment, panic takes over. Because standing before them isn't just a girl anymore. It's the great devil of the Red Flames. Fear spreads fast the moment they recognize her. So it's true. The Lord of Holstead really made a pact with the great devil. And Letitia. She sees that reaction and almost smiles. Because it means one thing. The plan is working. A few days ago, Alexa and Casaro had coached her on this. How to look fearless. Take her hair down, carry herself with confidence, act like she owns the battlefield. They even gave her armor to match the image. And now, it's paying off. She straightens slightly, clears her throat, and calls for attention. Calm. Controlled. She announces that she's on her way to conquer Velosa Castle. At first, she planned to burn it down when they all gathered, but she pauses and adds that her employer prefers to keep the castle instead. And that line. Yeah, Erdin feels that one. Watching her like this, cool, commanding, completely different from before, it gets to him, but she's not done. She adds that if they're still interested in fighting, they should meet her at Velasa. Maybe Karax and his centuria will be there to welcome them, at the gates of hell. And then she laughs. Light. Dangerous. Before flying off on the dragon. The effect is immediate. Panic. The entire camp starts scrambling, trying to decide what to do next. South is not an option. That leads straight to Holstead. So their only choice is to run north. Not too far away, hidden among the rocks, the grannies and a few others are watching everything unfold. And when they see the chaos, they feel relieved, because it worked. They quietly move into position, staying low, preparing for the next step. Now all they have to do is wait, hold their ground, and buy time for their masters, and hope everything goes according to plan. Because hours before this, they had already mapped it out. Velasa is heavily fortified, filled with stone golems. Taking it head-on wouldn't work. But the Great Book of Secrets offers another path. Create division, break their unity first, and now, with Karax and the Centuria gone, their strength has already taken a hit. That's why they're calling for help from other devil lords, which means fear is their weakness, so they use it. The dragon. If word from the last battle has spread, then the fear is already there. All they need to do is amplify it. Flying over the Tomb of Spiders forces the enemy into a choice retreat to Velasa, or abandon their position entirely, and if they leave, Holstead's forces will move in and take control. Step by step, the trap closes. But timing matters. They still need to hold things outside long enough for Erdin to reach the dungeon and retrieve the artifact. Everything depends on that. Later, as things quiet down, Erdin suggests naming the dragon. He says maybe they should wait until after they capture Velosa and name it after the artifact. Letitia agrees, clearly happy, gently interacting with the dragon like it understands every word. Then Erdin asks her something more serious. Why did she really come along? Because he knows it's not just about the dragon. She answers honestly. She wants to understand what those 7 years, those long, cold years, took from them. She wants to know the truth. And, if possible, stay by his side a little longer. Erdin doesn't fully get what she means at first. So she explains the truth that's been hidden from her, how he really feels. He pauses. Then tells her the truth isn't always something people are ready to face. Sometimes, it's far worse than they imagine. But Letitia doesn't back down. She already knows. Whatever it is, it won't change how she feels. The next day, Letitia and Erdin arrive at Velasa Castle on the dragon, and they catch everyone off guard. The stone golems panic immediately, sending word to their lord that the great devil and the Lord of Holstead are here. No warning, no build-up, just pressure. Letitia calls out to him, calm as ever, and lays it out plainly. His forces at the Tomb of Spiders have already fled. So now he has a choice. Die here, or hand over the artifact and live. And that lands. Because he knows exactly who he's dealing with. These are the ones who took down Karax, his son, and the Centuria. So he doesn't drag it out. He surrenders, just like that, and offers to take them straight to the dungeon where the artifact is kept. It feels too easy. Even Letitia isn't buying it. Nothing good ever comes this smoothly. The moment he gives in, that doubt settles in her mind. But they move anyway, quietly walking through the dungeon, staying alert. Outside, the dragon is enough to keep the soldiers in check, so no interruptions. She asks how much farther, and he tells them it's just past the hatchery. That catches her attention. She's read about it, the place where stone golems are born from dark lava. Strange, dangerous, but fascinating. They reach the door. The Lord struggles a bit, then finally opens it and retrieves the artifact. Erdin immediately tells him to hand it over. He hesitates, just for a second, like he's not ready to let it go. Then he does. The artifact. The Eye of Valhana's. A relic said to break any magic cast on a person, and the moment Erdin touches it, everything changes. A wave of light bursts out, surrounding him completely. He drops. Hard. His mask shatters as he hits the ground. Letitia panics and rushes to him, but he tries to stop her. Turns his face away, telling her he's fine. That even if he's hurt, it doesn't matter. It won't make him any more hideous than he already is. And that right there says everything about how he sees himself. But she's not listening. She needs to see. She pleads with him to look at her. He refuses, so she doesn't wait. She grabs his face and pulls him toward her, and then she freezes. Because this is not what she expected, at all. She lets go, dropping back in shock. And now he's apologizing, saying he didn't know the artifact would do this, that he didn't expect it to have that kind of power. He tries to cover his face, like he's done something wrong. Letitia is still staring, trying to process what she's seeing, so she asks the question that's been sitting in her mind. Who is he? He tries to explain, but she cuts him off, asking for her husband, because in her mind, her husband is supposed to be a monster. So who is this? This unbelievably handsome man in front of her. He steps closer, worried he's scared her, but she moves back, overwhelmed. Not out of fear, just shock, because the truth is, he looks too good. Like it doesn't even match the story he's been telling all this time. And he still doesn't get it. Still thinking he needs to hide. Looking for anything to cover his face. Meanwhile, Letitia is slowly stepping closer again, drawn in, wanting to see more, trying to understand how this is even possible. Because all this time, the man she thought was a hideous monster has been hiding a face like this. He sees her expression and misunderstands it completely. He apologizes quietly, saying he knows how hard it must be to look at him. In his mind, nothing has changed. He's still that hideous man he's always believed himself to be. But Letitia, she's thinking something entirely different. She's already decided, divorce papers or not, she's not leaving. Erdin keeps going, almost convincing himself out loud. Talking about melted skin, sores, everything he thinks she must be seeing. He even says she's just in shock, that anyone would be. And then, he suggests calling a hypnotist, so she can forget. She stops him immediately, tells him to listen, and says it clearly. He's not hideous, not even close. She's seen so many people before, but him, he's the most. She can't even finish it, because suddenly her head spins. The pain hits fast and sharp. She tries to steady herself, but it's too much, and then she blacks out. In that strange silence, she hears a voice, telling her not to say another word. She looks around and sees Holstead Castle. But something feels wrong. The voice speaks again, an ancient curse. If she ever speaks the truth, the Lord of Holstead dies. That lands heavy. Before she can even process it, everything shifts. Wings flutter, countless eyes staring at her from the dark. And then, she wakes up. Erdin is right there, calling her, worried. She brushes it off, saying the pain is gone. But inside, nothing is the same. He still thinks she's reacting to his appearance, still convinced she's shaken by it. Meanwhile, she's trying to process what she just learned. Because now she knows, if he ever discovers the truth about himself, he could die. And that thought stays with her. But she doesn't show it. Instead, she looks at him and says she isn't scared. Not at all. In fact, she was only shocked by how handsome he is. She tells him to look into her eyes, see for himself. So he does. And for a moment, he believes her. Says she always manages to surprise him. Though, to him, her face is the more surprising one. He decides to get a new mask made as soon as they return. At least now with Valhanna's, they can fly straight to the tower. And that's when it clicks for her. The dragon's name, Valhanna's. She loves it. He smiles and somehow that just makes everything worse for her. In a good way, because he looks even better like that. Then something small catches their attention. A soft glow. A light blue butterfly, shimmering in the air. Not normal, a glass butterfly. They both recognize it. These creatures absorb magic from artifacts, then spread it, helping create new ones. Rare. Beautiful. And now, almost gone. Letitia watches it, completely taken in. But something feels off. There are too many. They follow the trail and soon find more of them. Dozens. Caged. And that's when it becomes clear. Velasa has been capturing them. For what? Creating new artifacts? Or worse, stopping new life from forming. Letitia gently picks one up, calling them poor things. And Erdin doesn't hesitate. He opens the cage. Lets them go. One by one, they scatter back into the air, free again. He looks at her and quietly asks if they should head back too. She just takes his hand and nods. Back at the castle, Isaac is moving around quietly, clearly looking for something. He steps into a room, drags a stool over, and reaches up to take a mask off a statue. No hesitation, he grabs it and leaves. Soon after, he finds Erdin. He hands him the mask and casually mentions that it used to belong to their father. Still in good condition too, so it should work for now until he makes a new one. Erdin takes it, but instead of putting it on, he just stares at it. Isaac notices immediately and asks what's wrong. And Erdin, almost absent-minded, wonders if it still carries their father's scent. That catches Isaac off guard a bit. He points out it's been sitting in the dungeon for years. They're lucky it didn't rot away. Then Erdin asks something unexpected. If Isaac remembers their father's face. Isaac pauses, then answers honestly. He lost his sight as a child after a terrible fever, so no, he doesn't remember the face, but he remembers the feeling. Warm cheeks. A steady, gentle breath. That's what stayed with him. Then he asks why, and Erdin finally says it. Letitia saw his face. Isaac reacts instantly. Shocked, loud, full of questions. How did it happen? What did she say? And Erdin answers simply. She said he isn't a monster. She looked straight at him and said he didn't scare her. That lands. Isaac takes it in, then nods slowly. Says he already knew she was brave, but now he respects her even more. But Erdin goes somewhere else with it. He says, for her sake, he still needs to divorce her as soon as possible. And yet, he admits something strange. He felt relieved, because for the first time, someone saw everything. Not just the mask, but what he believed was underneath it. The boils, the damaged skin, every flaw he thought made him unworthy. And she still smiled. And that smile? He likes it. More than he expected. He wants to see it again. For a long time, Isaac listens, then asks the real question. When will he finally accept it? Because the world they live in is full of lies. And the truth, no matter how ugly, is the most valuable thing there is. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the castle, Letitia is sitting with a book, trying to focus. It talks about devils, how they're drawn to beauty, obsessed with it, always wanting to possess what shines. But she's not really reading anymore, because her mind keeps drifting. Back to him. And she's frustrated. Why does his face keep popping up like that? She tries to brush it off, but he is handsome. And that thought only makes things worse, because now she feels like she's reacting to his looks. So she pauses. Is that really it? She tries to calm herself. She's already married to him. But then again, he's also writing divorce papers. So what is this? Just a silly crush? That's what she tells herself. But then another thought slips in. What if they stayed married? What if they just lived together like this? And immediately she shuts it down, calls herself crazy for even thinking it, doesn't even notice the door opening. Alexa walks in and catches her in that moment, clearly not okay. Asks what's wrong. Letitia quickly brushes it off, says she's fine, just exercising. Yeah, sure. Then she asks what Alexa needs, and Alexa hands her a letter from Castle. Letitia reads it, confused at first, then pauses, and looks up, because now it makes sense. They're hosting a ball. Erdin stands alone, staring at his reflection in the water. He sighs. His thoughts drift straight back to Letitia, how she stayed so calm after seeing his face, like it didn't shake her at all. And that confuses him more than anything. Then a memory comes back, a younger him, asking his mother a simple question, if she's ever afraid to look at his father. If being around him ever feels uncomfortable? His mother doesn't answer right away. Instead, she asks him something back. Are you afraid of your father? Are the people of Holstead afraid of him? And he says no, so she tells him the truth. No one cares how his father looks, because when someone is kind, gentle, and sincere, you can't help but love them. People who see the heart will always stay. That memory lingers. Then a knock pulls him back. He startles. Letitia's voice comes through the door, asking to come in. He quickly tells her to wait. He's not wearing his mask, but she opens the door anyway, just a little, peeking in like something might be wrong. And their eyes meet. She freezes. He does too. Then his mask slips from his hand and drops. For a second, everything feels exposed. He quickly covers his face, apologizing, but what she says next completely throws him off. It's not fear. She says it's because he's too beautiful. He bends to pick up the mask, but she stops him, tells him she wants to look at his face a little longer, and then she asks something simple. That he shows his face when they're alone together. He agrees. After a moment, he asks why she came. She hands him the letter from Castle, and it clicks. Their recent victory has spread, and now they've been invited. A ball. Letitia is confused, though. Their achievement is basically devil hunting, so why invite them? Erdin explains. The Wiesen family are devil hunters too, trained from a young age. Holstead has always fought alone, but attending could help them gather information. Still, he senses something else. The Grand Devil Duke Belair has been expanding his influence. That alone makes things tense. Letitia asks if other devil hunters will be there. He says yes and adds that most of the invited families are connected to Belair in some way. That raises the stakes, because now it feels like a gathering, with hidden motives. She points out the obvious. If all the hunters are in one place, wouldn't that attract devils? Like honey-drawing bees, he reassures her. Castle is different. Its artifact is powerful, strong enough to nullify devil powers completely. Any evil creature that tries to cross its walls dies instantly. No magic works there. It's basically untouchable. And yeah, that impresses her. Then he explains the plan. They travel by carriage to the capital, but from there they go alone. No guards, no attendants. Just the two of them. They'll blend in, move quietly, not draw attention. Letitia hears all that and she's already somewhere else mentally. 'Cause to her, that sounds like a date. He keeps explaining, borrowing horses, secured roads, safety measures, but when he notices her zoning out, he asks what's wrong. She just says she's thinking. A few days later, the day of the ball arrives. The carriage is ready. They prepare to leave, with final instructions given, and the servants send them off. Once they're alone, Erdin removes his mask again, mentioning he still needs time to get used to not wearing it. Letitia just stares, completely distracted. He notices and asks if she's okay. She says she is. Then he wonders if his condition has worsened, thinking that's why she's staring. But she quickly shuts that down. She doesn't even notice anything like that. Then she brings up something else. Duke Belair. What does expanding his power really mean? Erdin explains what he's heard. Belair recently opened a place called the Crystal Palace, a gambling house for devils and evil beasts. Luxury, parties, gambling, every night. And because of it, devils have become more active in the area. Letitia starts thinking. There must be other places like that. So what makes this one special? Erdin admits he doesn't know much about it. But now her curiosity is fully awake. She wonders what it's like, then casually suggests something that makes him pause. Maybe they should go there, the Crystal Palace. Erdin pauses when she suggests it. Going to the Crystal Palace? Walking straight into a place filled with devils? Dangerous. But Letitia doesn't back down. She explains it simply, it's actually safer. Among people, they'll stand out too easily. If anyone is targeting them, innocent people could get caught in it. But among devils? No one would expect them to willingly walk into that kind of place. And, just like that, it clicks for him. He hadn't thought of it that way. So now the plan shifts. She asks where it is, and he admits he's not sure. Somewhere in the wastelands, hidden. The only thing he's heard is that carriages driven by evil beasts take people there. Then he glances at himself. With the mask, he can pass. He doesn't look too different, but her. She already has that covered. She reveals a mask of her own, something she had specially made. Instead of looking like the poor girl who married into Holstead, she wants to look like she belongs, like one of them. And that catches him off guard, because while she's preparing to stand beside him, he's still thinking about letting her go. That same conflict rises again. He wants to free her from all this, but at the same time, he doesn't want her to leave. Still, something feels off. Letitia points it out first. The Wisens haven't been successful lately, yet they're hosting a grand ball in the middle of all this danger. It doesn't add up. Erdin thinks it might be to gather strength, maybe show unity. It would take serious wealth to pull something like that off now, but even that explanation feels incomplete. She looks out the carriage window, thinking deeper. If devils really had the upper hand, they would have attacked already, but everything has been strangely calm. Too calm. Erdin adds that maybe it's because the devils are distracted, busy enjoying themselves at the Crystal Palace, and that thought sits there. Peace, created by devils. The irony. Then it hits him. Devil hunting has been declining ever since the Crystal Palace appeared. Even the Wisens, who were always on the front lines, have become quiet. And if they've slowed down, everyone else has too. So now he's wondering, is there a connection between the Wisens and the Crystal Palace? Before he can dig deeper, they spot a rider. The man is cheerful, oddly excited about the gloomy weather, says it brings more customers. Then he notices them, masked, traveling. He asks if they're heading to the Crystal Palace. They confirm. And just like that, he offers them a ride. Letitia senses something strange about him, but they go anyway. The ride doesn't take long before she spots something massive ahead and asks if that's the Crystal Palace. The rider laughs. No, that's the Diamond Castle, Duke Belair's palace. Erdin quickly says they're from the south, and the man nods, mentioning how tough things have been there lately. Then casually tells them to enjoy themselves at the Crystal Palace. Like it's normal. Like nothing is wrong. Soon, they stop. Right beside a quiet lake. There's nothing else. Just a tree in the distance. They exchange looks. Because this doesn't look like anything. The rider notices their confusion and explains it simply. Walk on the lake. Head toward the tree. They'll see it then. Yeah, easier said than done. Even he laughs, saying everyone reacts like this at first. Then he leaves, just like that. So now it's just them, standing at the edge of a lake, being told to walk on water. They hesitate, but move anyway. And somehow, it works. Letitia looks down, stunned. She's walking on water, no sinking, no ripples, just standing. Erdin starts to understand. This place is close to something called the crack of the dimension, a strange phenomenon that appears in the wastelands, where reality itself bends. That would explain this. She looks around, trying to make sense of it, then notices something strange. They can see the reflection of the tree, but not themselves. And that's when everything shifts. She looks up and screams. The sky is wrong, dark, unnatural. She panics, saying she can't breathe, that she just fell into the water, but she's completely dry. And then she notices something even stranger. The raindrops aren't falling down, they're rising. Erdin finally realizes it. They're not on the surface. They're on the other side of it, walking on a flipped world. He tells her to look ahead, and when she does, she sees it. The Crystal Palace, right in front of them. Moments later, they arrive. And yeah, the Crystal Palace is nothing like the rumors. It's worse, in a good way. Massive, glowing, unreal. Just standing there makes you wonder how something like this even exists, let alone how much it costs to build. No wonder no one knows where it is. A place like this doesn't just sit on a map. Right at the entrance, there's already a scene. A group of beasts are arguing with the doorkeepers, trying to get in but being blocked. Which is strange, because they're dressed well enough. Letitia notices immediately. So what's the issue? The gatekeeper explains. Their offering isn't valuable enough. That doesn't go well. The beasts get angry, insisting their item is rare, beautiful, something no one else has. But the gatekeeper isn't impressed. He starts showing examples of what others brought. Sparkling candy wrapped in shiny packaging, a strange bottle that doesn't break even when handled roughly. To him, those are treasures. But what the beasts brought, just a lump of metal, useless. And that's where Letitia steps in. She calls his attention, calm as ever. He turns to her, asking if she wants entry too, if she has an offering or at least the fee. She doesn't, but she does have something better, a bargain. She asks him to let her prove the value of the item they brought. If she succeeds, all of them get in. Even the beasts are surprised. Erdin leans in, whispering if she actually knows what she's doing from her past life. She shuts him up immediately. No time for doubt. She takes the item, tells one of the beasts to stand still. And then, click, instant tension. They almost attack, thinking she just did something to them. But she quickly calms them down and shows them the paper, explains that soon they'll see themselves on it. And just like that, confusion turns into curiosity. It's a camera. And when it works, everyone is stunned. Because suddenly, that useless metal becomes something rare. Something magical, way more valuable than shiny wrappers and unbreakable bottles. The gatekeeper realizes his mistake immediately, apologizes, and lets all of them in. Letitia just stands there, quietly relieved that the camera still had film inside. Because honestly, that could have gone very differently. Now the beasts look at her differently too. Her appearance might make her seem like a lower-class devil, but her knowledge, that's something else entirely. And in their own strange way, that's respect. Inside the main hall, things get even more interesting. Because it's not just devils. Humans are here too. Not long after, the gatekeeper returns, almost eager this time. He apologizes again, praising her knowledge, then leans in and shares something quietly. There's a private area. For those interested in superior civilization, a place where they can exchange knowledge. And he offers to take them there. Letitia doesn't hesitate. Of course she wants in. This is exactly her field. Erdin backs her up immediately, saying no one understands that world better than his wife. So they follow. The atmosphere changes as soon as they arrive. It's different here. More refined. More dangerous. The devils here feel stronger. There's a performer dancing in the center, and the crowd watching looks far beyond the usual beasts outside. Erdin leans closer, warning her quietly. These aren't ordinary devils. They need to be careful. Then they overhear something. A conversation about attacking a small castle. A plan already in motion. And then, Weizen. That name again. So they sit, pretending to blend in, listening closely. A waiter approaches, asking for their order. Erdin casually asks for whatever is popular. And honestly, not the safest move right now. But the real problem isn't the food, it's what they hear next. The people of Weizen have made a deal, an alliance. And Holstead? They're the target. The banquet is a trap. Set up with powerful devils to teach Holstead a lesson. And just like that, what looked like an invitation turns into something much worse. And just like that, Belair drops a bomb. The whole thing was a trap. He already sent men ahead to teach the Holstead family a lesson, and that single reveal sends both Letitia and Erdin into immediate shock. Erdin especially looks like he is 2 seconds away from completely losing it. When someone asks whether he plans to seize the castle, Belair casually brushes it off, claiming he only wants to protect his business interests. Ever since the Weizens allied with them, devil attacks have decreased, and trade has been booming. In his mind, if the Holstead family could just be pushed aside, they could dominate Valhalla entirely and control the fastest route across the wasteland. Yeah, bro was already playing chess while everyone else was still figuring out the board. The moment Erdin hears enough, he prepares to leave, but Letitia quickly stops him. And this is where our girl truly shines. She already anticipated something like this and secretly took precautions before they even arrived. She had realized that while the Weizen castle was protected by its artifact, every other castle would be completely vulnerable while their lords attended the banquet. So she quietly entrusted Alex with a special task before they left. Sure enough, back at Holstead Castle, Alex and Casaro are already handling the intruders and protecting the territory like it was planned all along. I cannot lie. Our girl keeps saving everyone with pure foresight. Even Erdin is genuinely stunned by how accurately she predicted everything from such limited information. As the carriage rolls toward Weizen Castle, the pieces keep falling into place. The reason devils have not been attacking as aggressively lately is that something deeply suspicious is happening behind the scenes. Erdin briefly considers turning back but rejects it almost immediately. Doing so would only tip off their enemies. Since they were already excluded from the Devil Horns Union and falsely accused, the smarter play is to continue as planned and act completely unaware. Meanwhile, Erdin cannot stop thinking about Duke Weizen's betrayal. This man blindly trusted the power of an artifact and ended up cutting a deal with devils, putting countless innocent lives at risk. And if Letitia had not uncovered the truth when she did, the consequences would have been absolutely catastrophic. Eventually, they arrive at the magnificent Weizen Castle, and the atmosphere is already buzzing. Rumors are flying among nobles and servants alike, some gossiping about marriage prospects, others admiring the mysterious Crystal Palace, and everyone is eager to talk. But the moment Lord Erdin and Letitia Gray step through that entrance, the entire hall goes silent. Every single eye in the room lands on them instantly. And honestly, with everything they now know, what looks like a glamorous banquet from the outside is about to become something far more dangerous than anyone in that room realizes. The moment Erdin and Letitia step into that banquet hall, the entire room transforms into a gossip festival. Whispers spread instantly about the mysterious monster lord hiding behind a mask, while everyone else fixates on the woman beside him. If that is the Grey family's daughter who married into the Halsteads, why is she covering her face too? Duke Weizen swoops in with a warm welcome, thanking them for accepting his invitation during such difficult times and casually dropping that he would love a private discussion with Erdin later. Sounds friendly enough on the surface. But here is the thing. He completely ignores Letitia. Not a single word was directed at her the entire time, and our girl clocks it immediately. This is not indifference. He is deliberately acting like she does not exist. Before slipping away, Erdin quietly tells her he plans to keep an eye on the Duke. She warns him to be careful. He returns the same, and then he is gone. And the second he disappears, the nobles start circling like vultures. The whispers get louder, some claiming she must be hiding a hideous face beneath the mask, others insisting she is rumored to be a great beauty. Then, as if following some cheap noblewoman playbook, someone deliberately bumps into her and splashes wine all over her dress. Her mask hits the floor, and suddenly every single eye in that room locks onto her face. And just like that, the crowd completely changes its tune, falling over themselves to praise her beauty. Yeah, these people are absolutely shameless, and everyone in that room knows it. One noblewoman approaches with the fakest smile imaginable and begins examining Letitia like livestock at a market, complimenting her appearance, commenting on her ability to bear children, and even suggesting she could introduce her to better men than the so-called monster lord. And that is where our girl finally reaches her limit. She calmly picks up her mask and shuts the entire conversation down. She reminds them that she is already the second master of the Holstead family and happier than anyone could imagine, then calls out the sheer audacity of trying to arrange marriages for a woman who is already married and treating her like something to be bought and sold. She makes it crystal clear that the Holsteads proudly stand at the front lines, protecting the North from devils, and if anyone wants the truth about them, they can ask her directly instead of spreading rumors. Honestly, I would have applauded right there. The nobles keep grumbling behind her back, but our girl does not care anymore. Let them talk. None of them understands why she chose the Holstead or why she smiles so confidently, and frankly, they do not deserve to know. Just when the atmosphere begins settling, Erdin returns and asks her for a dance. She accepts, and for one brief moment, everything actually feels peaceful as they move across the floor together. She even finds herself wishing it could last a little longer. But reality comes crashing back when he reveals that the Duke quietly slipped down to the dungeon, likely waiting for news about the attack on Holstead Castle through a hidden communication device below. The two quietly leave the ballroom and follow the trail down, with Erdin warning her to stay hidden and avoid being discovered. But before they can get any closer, voices drift through the corridor. One of them sounds completely shocked. Capturing the Grey family's daughter? Impossible. And just like that, Duke Wisen's secrets start getting a whole lot darker. Hidden inside the dungeon, Letitia and Erdin overhear Duke Wisen speaking with Belair, and the conversation immediately takes a shocking turn. Belair reveals that the attack on Holstead Castle was a complete disaster because of a dragon. A dragon. Every soldier they sent got crushed, and the few survivors only came back with a warning. Anyone who dares attack the Holstead will be considered an enemy of the dragon and burned to ashes. And honestly, our girl cannot help feeling a little emotional hearing that. Valhanna's really has come a long way. Meanwhile, Duke Wisen is in complete disbelief, insisting dragons are nothing but myths. Belair quickly corrects that assumption, confirming they are very real. And the one protecting the Holstead is not even fully grown yet. Starting a war right now would be pure suicide. So instead, she proposes a new plan. Lure Letitia to their side and take the dragon away from her. The Duke hates being told what to do, but Belair makes the stakes painfully clear. If their business fails, he is the one paying the price. As the Duke heads back toward the banquet, Letitia and Erdin barely manage to hide in time. The tension briefly cracks when our girl realizes her hand is resting directly on his chest, but there is no time to dwell on it because they soon discover the communication artifact connecting the castle to Belair. Erdin examines it immediately and identifies it as the Shield of St. Louis. The moment he touches it, his expression shifts. The artifact is dying. This sacred relic only functions when powered by the honor and devotion of the Whiteson family, generations of protecting the North and hunting devils. But with the Duke now working alongside Belair, that foundation is crumbling from the inside. Suddenly, everything clicks into place. If the shield collapses, the entire northern defense line falls with it. And if Belair's influence keeps spreading, the devils will not stop at the north. The whole continent could eventually be swallowed. This just went from a family dispute to a continent-level catastrophe in one conversation. Realizing they need a solution fast, Letitia starts connecting the dots. She remembers Belair's plan to capture her, and suddenly an idea clicks into place. Instead of waiting around to be targeted, they should strike first. So when Duke Wisen finally approaches her at the banquet and awkwardly apologizes for not greeting her properly earlier, our girl wastes absolutely no time. She flatters his castle, praises his taste, and slowly steers the conversation toward business. The Duke relaxes, clearly believing he is the one in control here. Then she casually drops the Crystal Palace into the conversation, and just like that, his entire composure cracks. He is genuinely shocked she even knows about it, but Letitia makes it clear she is far more informed than people give her credit for. She points out that while everyone else at this banquet has been disappointing, the person investing in the Crystal Palace clearly has excellent taste. And in that moment, the Duke realizes she already knows about his partnership with Belair. But instead of exposing him right there, she does something nobody sees coming. She offers him a deal. The Duke can barely keep up as she cuts straight through his excuses and questions his confidence as a businessman. Then, with a calm smile, she lays her cards on the table. If he truly wants to make real money, there is a far better option sitting right in front of him. She wants him to become a double agent. And just like that, our girl flips the entire game completely upside down. I genuinely did not see that move coming, and clearly neither did he. Duke Wyzen is completely caught off guard. A double agent? That was definitely not what he walked into this conversation expecting. But Letitia stays completely calm and immediately starts selling the idea. She promises to pay him just as generously as Belair does, and naturally he wants to know why he should even consider it. That is when our girl starts laying out her cards one by one. The Holsteads have a dragon, a force powerful enough to rival any artifact. On top of that, she possesses knowledge of the so-called superior civilization that even the devils themselves admire. And that finally gets his full attention. Very few high-ranking devils even know about that civilization, so how could she possibly know about it? Unfortunately for him, Letitia has absolutely no intention of revealing her secrets. A trade secret is a trade secret, and she is not budging. When he questions whether he can even trust her claims, she practically laughs in his face. Then she completely dismantles his entire way of thinking. The Belair may be hunting devils, sure, but she points out something nobody else has ever stopped to consider. If a human robs another human, they get punished. But if humans rob devils, people cheer for them. So what exactly is wrong with taking everything from the devils? The more she talks, the more the Duke realizes he has never once looked at the situation this way before. I am not going to lie, she was sounding more dangerous than the devils themselves at this point. By the end of the conversation, he is fully convinced. She extends her hand, he accepts, and just like that, the two officially become partners. The following morning, though, Letitia is facing an entirely different kind of problem. Knowing about the advanced civilization from her previous life is one thing, but actually using that knowledge is something else entirely. Human lords refuse to unite. The Holsteads are short on manpower, and Belair only cares about profit. There has to be a way to turn that knowledge into a weapon against him. While digging through Erdin's books for inspiration, she stumbles onto something fascinating, a theory about dimensional cracks. According to the records, lost objects from another world drift inside these cracks, before occasionally appearing in this one. To prevent monsters and dangerous things from crossing over, ancient sages created special doors capable of controlling those cracks. And here is the part that really gets her attention. If you know an item's true name in the language of the other world, you can summon it directly through the door. Our girl is now fully invested. The description sounds suspiciously similar to the mysterious door she has been curious about for a while, so she grabs Valhana's and rushes straight for it. After some searching, she discovers a strange password written in familiar Korean characters. The moment she activates it, the sealed door slowly creaks open, and her heart starts racing. Standing before the crack, she awkwardly calls out for something she has desperately missed from her old life. Nothing happens at first, and she immediately feels embarrassed. Then, suddenly, a glowing light fills the room, and a cold object appears directly in her hand. Letitia stares at it in complete disbelief before nearly bursting into tears. It is a real iced Americano. After everything she has survived, the monsters, the politics, the chaos, the one thing that finally breaks her composure is a cup of coffee from home. And honestly, nobody can blame her for that reaction at all. The moment our girl finally gets her hands on a real iced Americano, all composure goes completely out the window. One sip and she is practically ready to cry from pure happiness. After everything she has survived, this one simple drink feels like an actual miracle. Suddenly, she finally understands why everyone was so obsessed with taking Velosa back. While reading through the notes, she discovers more rules about the mysterious door. Living creatures cannot be summoned, and some doors are unreliable enough to swallow items instead of delivering them. Her mind drifts back to her old life, especially the fluffy convenience store cat she used to visit whenever studying got too overwhelming. Then it hits her. There are no normal cats in this world. The only ones she has ever encountered are those terrifying sand cats in the north. And just like that, an idea is born. Yeah, whenever a character suddenly goes quiet like this, you already know trouble is coming. The very next day, Letitia shocks everyone by calling an emergency meeting at Holstead Castle. Alex and Casaro immediately wonder if somebody has upset her, but our girl has something far bigger on her mind. She announces that the Holsteads are declaring war on the Grand Devil Belair. The room explodes with confusion instantly. They barely have enough resources to defend themselves, so how are they supposed to fight a war? That is when she drops a strange item onto the table. Chocolate. Everyone stares blankly while she reveals her greatest advantage. Unlike everyone else who must wait for dimensional cracks to randomly deliver things, she can order whatever she wants directly through Velosa's door. She summons another chocolate on the spot to prove it, leaving even Erdin completely speechless. Then she quickly clarifies that this is not a military war she is proposing. It is a commercial war. A few days later, with Duke Wyzen secretly backing them, they open a restaurant near the Crystal Palace. Alex remains skeptical, wondering if the notoriously picky sandcats will actually show up. Letitia, however, is completely confident. Sure enough, a couple of sandcats pass by on their way to another expensive Crystal Palace show. Everything is normal until a mouth-watering aroma drifts through the air and completely hijacks their attention. Before long, curiosity wins. They sneak over to investigate and are warmly welcomed into the newly opened restaurant. The only item on the menu is a strange-looking stew called Meow Stew. The wife immediately thinks it looks suspicious, while her husband bravely volunteers to taste it first. Big mistake. One spoonful later, and this man is emotionally destroyed. The stew is so good that he nearly tears up on the spot. By the time the couple leaves, they are already planning to tell everyone they know about this hidden gem. Watching them rush off without even collecting their change, the entire Holstead crew realizes the plan is working. Meanwhile, Letitia calmly tells everyone to get ready, because very soon this place is going to be packed with devils and evil species. At this point, Belair has no idea a restaurant is about to become his biggest nightmare. The success of Pub Otherworld is honestly ridiculous. By the second day, every single table is packed, and that same Sandcat family from opening day is already back with even more relatives in tow, raving about the food to anyone who will listen. By the third day, getting a reservation is harder than finding actual treasure. Customers are practically begging for seats, calling it the greatest food they have ever tasted in their lives. Money pours in so fast that even our girl is genuinely impressed by the numbers. Meanwhile, word spreads across Velasa like wildfire. Everywhere people go, the conversation is the same. If you have not eaten at Pub Otherworld, you are simply missing out. A few days later, things get even crazier. The restaurant becomes so popular that a dress code and membership system have to be introduced. Customers who waited for hours are turned away at the door, leaving them absolutely devastated. Casero eventually asks whether it is really okay to be charging the devils this much. And our girl just smiles and casually admits she is not charging them enough yet. Yeah, that answer would have terrified me too. Then, right when business is at its absolute peak, she suddenly shuts the entire restaurant down. Everyone is confused and borderline panicking, but this is all part of the plan. It is finally time to provoke Grand Devil Belair directly. Back at Holstead Castle, the team sits down to discuss the infamous Belair. This man is an ancient Grand Devil of wealth who transformed Aeron Castle into the lavish Diamond Castle, and his reputation says everything. Arrogant, extravagant, and completely obsessed with himself. In other words, exactly the kind of person who absolutely cannot ignore a threat to his profits. Letitia knows that if they want to go up against him, they need to seriously strengthen their defenses first. The biggest concern is Velasa Castle. They need guards, but soldiers are scarce, and mercenaries cannot be trusted. That is when our girl stumbles onto something very interesting involving stone golems. Following instructions from an old book, Letitia and Erdin boil pieces of limestone taken from defeated stone golems. Neither of them is fully convinced it will actually work, but they decide to try anyway. Then the water starts bubbling and something begins crawling out. Our girl immediately grabs Erdin, completely convinced they have accidentally created a monster. But when he carefully lifts the tiny creature, the truth hits them both. It is not a monster at all. It is a baby stone golem, and far smaller than either of them expected. The little thing struggles across the floor before latching onto their clothes with its tiny, rocky hands. Then it looks up at both of them and says one single word, Mama. And now both of them are just standing there wondering the same thing. Which one of us is Mama? The moment the baby stone golem calls them Mom and Dad, Letitia shuts that down immediately. Absolutely not. Everyone here calls them my lord, so that is exactly what the babies will call them too. The little golem pauses for a moment, tilts its tiny head and tries it out. My lord? And just like that, every single baby golem still crawling out of the boiling water starts shouting the same thing all at once. The sight is so completely ridiculous that even Erdin cannot hide his surprise. But somehow, against all odds, it actually works. For what might be the very first time in history, humans have successfully tamed an evil species. A few hours later, though, reality starts setting in fast. There are way more baby golems than Letitia ever anticipated, and feeding all of them is already becoming a serious problem. With Pub Otherworld preparing to reopen soon, Alex and Casaro will be far too busy to help, and leaving the babies with ordinary soldiers sounds like a catastrophe waiting to happen. Thankfully, Erdin comes up with an idea. He gathers the warriors he met in the Darklands, the Bondage King, the Bowmaster, the Power Bearer, the Violinist, and Yaron. The moment they hear there are adorable baby stone golems that need raising, these rough and dangerous warriors rush over without a single second of hesitation. Watching them use their unique skills to babysit tiny golems leaves our girl completely speechless. I honestly did not see that coming. Before long, Erdin reassures her that he and the warriors have everything handled, and tells her to focus on the business. And standing there watching all of it, our girl cannot help thinking he might just be the perfect husband. Or at the very least, the perfect house husband. Meanwhile, Pub Otherworld is still temporarily closed, and the regular Sandcat customers are already suffering. They show up only to find the doors shut and immediately start complaining that it has been nearly a week since they last tasted the food. Letitia apologizes warmly but reveals the restaurant will reopen tomorrow after renovations. The cats practically light up on the spot. She casually adds that the menu has been completely upgraded with fancy course meals, although servings will now be strictly limited to only 100 customers per day. The moment that number lands, panic spreads across their faces instantly. They immediately decide not to tell anyone else about the reopening. And of course, our girl already predicted that exact reaction. As a reward for their loyalty, she promises to reserve seats for them no matter when they arrive, asking only that they spread the word at the Crystal Palace. They leave feeling completely special, while Letitia quietly smiles to herself. A crisis really can become an opportunity. The next day, the results are honestly unbelievable. While the Crystal Palace sits nearly empty despite hosting full performances, Pub Otherworld is packed beyond capacity. Customers line up everywhere, tickets sell out instantly, and desperate cats practically beg for entry. Alex watches the growing crowd and starts getting genuinely worried, because some of them are starting to look less like hungry customers and more like addicts. Then fights begin breaking out over reservation tickets, and Letitia finally realizes what has happened. She knew cats loved catnip, but she never expected this level of obsession. What started as a clever business strategy has quietly transformed into something far bigger. The stew has basically become a drug, and she is the one who accidentally made it. And that is exactly when a calm voice cuts straight through all the chaos. The speaker explains that addiction and withdrawal are dangerous things, which is why businesses dealing with evil creatures must be handled carefully. Letitia slowly turns around and freezes completely. Standing right in front of her is none other than Grand Devil Belair himself. Every single instinct in her body is screaming at her to run. She even wants to grab everyone else and bolt out of there too. But somehow, her feet stay planted as the devil calmly studies the restaurant around him, taking in every detail with those unsettling eyes, before finally turning to her and asking one simple question. Is she the owner of this fine establishment? Yeah, the most dangerous customer imaginable just walked through the door, and there is absolutely no escaping this conversation. Meanwhile, back at Holstead Castle, Erdin is having a surprisingly difficult battle of his own. A baby stone golem is strapped to his back while he tries to get work done, but the moment it starts crying, our guy completely freezes. He awkwardly apologizes to the baby like that is somehow going to fix anything, only for Yaren to swoop in and call him the worst babysitter imaginable. Once the baby finally calms down, Erdin quietly reveals that he has just finished writing divorce papers and is about to sign them. That immediately shocks Yaroon. After everything he witnessed in the Darklands, especially Erdin calling Letitia's name in his sleep night after night, he genuinely believed these two were happily married. But Erdin's answer is heartbreaking. He believes she deserves far more than him and far more than a place like Holstead Castle. Yaroon can barely process it. From where he is standing, these two look nothing like a couple heading for divorce. They look like the complete opposite, so he asks the question Erdin has clearly been avoiding for a long time. Does he actually want to divorce her? Before he can even properly answer, Alex suddenly bursts through the door with terrifying news. Belair has kidnapped Letitia, and just like that, those divorce papers are about to become completely irrelevant. A few hours earlier, everything at Pub Otherworld had gone completely off the rails. Grand Devil Belair casually strolled in, and his presence alone put everyone on edge. Letitia steps forward, determined to handle the situation and keep Casaro calm. Unfortunately, Belair has absolutely no interest in talking. Without any warning, he grabs her and declares they are leaving. Casaro, Bastian, and the others immediately try to intervene, but the gap in power is overwhelming. Bastian bravely charges forward anyway and gets slammed into the ground in an instant. And even while being physically carried away, our girl is more worried about Bastian than herself, struggling and kicking while asking if he is all right. Honestly, I would be panicking too. Moments later, Belair opens a portal and vanishes with her, before anyone can do anything about it. Back at the castle, the shock leaves the entire room speechless. Bastian eventually recovers, and Erdin's reaction says everything. He clings to him tightly and admits he was terrified he had lost him. The room quickly fills with worry as Casaro and Alex try to figure out their next move. But a completely different thought keeps haunting Erdin in the background. If he had truly intended to divorce Letitia, why does the idea of losing her hurt this much? Meanwhile, over at Belair's castle, our girl finally gets dropped onto a couch after all that struggling. The Grand Devil immediately tells her to stop squirming before removing her restraints and uncovering her face. And the very first thing she does is cover her own eyes with her hand. Smart move, because this is the devil, famously known for enchanting anyone who looks at him. She has absolutely no intention of falling for that trap. Unfortunately, Belair has completely different plans. The moment he discovers she is actually human, both he and his assistant are genuinely stunned. What kind of insane human opens a restaurant in devil territory in the first place? Before she can even answer, he steps directly into her space and locks eyes with her. Confident as ever, he boasts that it would take him only 10 seconds to enslave her completely and have her begging for his affection. His assistant is immediately ordered to start timing it. The pressure is overwhelming. She cannot move, cannot look away, and can literally feel something rising inside her chest. Belair grins, fully convinced his charm is working exactly as intended, and demands that she say whatever is in her heart right now, so she does. She looks him dead in the eyes and blurts out, "You are ugly." Yeah, Our girl really just said that to a grand devil's face. And I genuinely cannot decide if that is the bravest or most reckless thing she has done so far. The room goes completely silent. Belair freezes. Our girl freezes. Even she cannot believe that it actually came out of her mouth. But once the dam breaks, there is no stopping it. When he tries again, demanding she admit how attractive he is, she doubles down and calls him ugly a second time. Belair is completely flustered at this point. His enchantment has never once failed before, yet somehow this woman is standing there comparing him to Erdin and deciding he simply does not measure up. That is when he starts connecting the rumors about the Holstead deaths and their mysterious grand devil, wondering if she is really just an ordinary human after all. Still, he quickly refocuses. The reason he kidnapped her is not revenge or romance. It is business. He wants the recipe for her famous stew. The Sandcats have completely abandoned Crystal Palace and flooded Pub Otherworld instead, and as a devil of wealth, Belair is taking that loss very personally. He even offers money in exchange, first 10,000, then more, acting as though absolutely everyone has a price. Letitia is genuinely baffled. Out of everything happening right now, this grand devil is obsessing over market share and customer retention. But the more he talks about money as the ultimate tool for controlling people, the more our girl starts paying closer attention, slowly realizing this conversation might be exactly the opportunity she has been waiting for. Then, just as Belair is busy lecturing everyone about the power of wealth, his assistant comes sprinting in looking absolutely terrified, practically screaming that a dragon has invaded the castle. That single announcement wipes every trace of confidence off Belair's face instantly. A dragon? In the north? Even he cannot process what he is hearing, but our girl already knows exactly who it is before anyone else does. She rushes straight to the window and looks outside, and sure enough, Valhannes is soaring through the sky in full dragon form with Erdin standing right beside him. After everything, our guy has finally come to get her back. Yeah, I think Belair just realized he picked the absolute wrong person to kidnap. One moment, he is acting like the undisputed king of the world, and the next, a dragon is tearing through his castle while an extremely determined husband is coming straight for him. The moment Letitia spots Erdin below, she immediately calls out to him. Unfortunately, Belair cuts her off and demands to know what she really is, because at this point, even he cannot figure her out anymore. Meanwhile, Valhannes and Erdin have already landed on the castle roof, but the rescue is not exactly going smoothly. The second the dragon touches down, a group of devils throws ropes around his neck and starts pulling with everything they have, desperately trying to restrain him. Erdin is having absolutely none of it. He charges forward, cuts every rope apart, and frees Valhannes in an instant. Then he looks up and finally spots Letitia standing beside Belair on the rooftop, and the tension shoots through the roof immediately. But while Erdin is busy preparing to rescue her, our girl is doing what she does best, turning a full-blown crisis into a business meeting. She starts questioning Belair's assistant about his contract, only to discover this poor pig has basically been working his entire life without proper pay, benefits, insurance, or anything remotely fair. Belair tries desperately to shut the conversation down, but Letitia is already in full recruitment mode, openly offering the pig better wages and proper treatment right then and there. Honestly, she started this chapter as a kidnapping victim and somehow became a human resources manager. The pig is practically ready to sign up on the spot, while Belair nearly loses his mind trying to get his own employee back. Their argument spirals into a ridiculous tug-of-war, and in the chaos, she even tears part of his clothes. Meanwhile, Valhannes' green flames are already spreading through the castle, and for the very first time, Belair is starting to look genuinely flustered. Seeing the situation finally turning in their favor, Letitia decides she has had enough of this nonsense. If Belair wants to speak with her as a businesswoman, he should at least learn some basic manners first. That comment only irritates him further. Down below, Erdin looks up and catches sight of the two of them arguing while standing far too close for his liking, and the expression on his face says everything. Unfortunately for Belair, that is the exact moment everything falls apart. In the middle of the chaos, he shoves her away. Letitia slips straight off the rooftop, and without a single second of hesitation, Erdin launches himself forward and catches her before she can fall. The moment she lands safely in his arms, she looks up at him, and the relief on her face is immediate. Of course he came. Honestly, deep down, she never once doubted that he would. The moment Erdin finally gets Letitia back, he pulls her into a tight hug before taking her straight home. And honestly, everyone at Holstead Castle has been completely worried sick. The second she walks through the door, Alex, Casaro, and Bastian practically throw themselves at her, overwhelmed with relief. They admit they were terrified something terrible had happened, and our girl apologizes for making everyone worry. Alex immediately cuts to the important question though. Was she enchanted by Belair? Erdin calmly shuts that concern down and confirms her soul is perfectly fine. Letitia is confused because she never saw him check anything, but apparently he knew the moment he saw her smile. If it was truly her, nobody else in the world could smile at him like that. Our guy is absolutely not beating the allegations anymore. Meanwhile, the baby stone golems have their own dramatic reaction. One tugs on Erdin's clothes and asks why everyone is crying. When he explains that a very bad devil kidnapped their lady and wanted to hurt her, the babies instantly declare war, shouting about defeating the bad devil with everything they have. Our girl cannot help smiling while watching them. Adorable but still very much evil creatures, and growing faster than anyone expected. Later that night, though, the mood shifts completely. Erdin removes his mask and asks to speak with her privately. The sudden sight of his face nearly catches her off guard, but before she can recover, he hands her a document. Divorce papers. He prepared them a long time ago and only lacked the courage to follow through. After everything that happened, he has finally convinced himself he has to let her go for her own safety. The moment she signs, she will be free to leave Holstead Castle forever. Meanwhile, the others are having their own reluctant discussion, slowly agreeing that if Letitia truly wants to leave, they have no choice but to respect it. Unfortunately for all of them, our girl has absolutely zero intention of doing that. She refuses immediately. Their business is finally succeeding, the Halsteads are growing stronger, and the battle against Belair is nowhere near finished. But more importantly, she is completely tired of Erdin deciding her future without ever once asking what she actually wants. Her marriage, her divorce, her entire life. Every single major decision has been made for her without her input. That realization leaves him utterly speechless. Then she finally says what has been sitting in her heart all along. She wants to stay. No matter how dangerous things get, she wants to remain by his side. The divorce can wait until Belair is dealt with, and Erdin eventually agrees, but only under one condition. He steps closer and asks her to stay near him from now on. When she promises she will, our girl suddenly notices just how close he is standing. And honestly, being that close to this ridiculously handsome husband of hers might end up being its own kind of danger. Meanwhile, Belair begins telling Letitia a story. At first, it sounds like nothing more than an old village tale, but the deeper it goes, the darker it becomes. Once upon a time, a farmer lived in a small village and faced a terrible problem. Harvest season was approaching, yet there had been no rain for months. Without enough crops to offer the duke who protected the region from devils, the entire village could be left defenseless. Desperate and out of options, the farmer wondered what he could do. That was when a little mouse appeared with a solution. The mouse offered to have its friends steal crops from neighboring villages and fill the farmer's storage. It sounded simple enough, but there was a price: his soul. After wrestling with his conscience, the farmer convinced himself that taking only a little would not hurt anyone. After all, he was doing it for his family and village. So he accepted. For a while, everything seemed fine. His storage filled up, the duke received his tribute, and the village remained protected. But a few months later, devastating news arrived. The neighboring village had been wiped out by evil creatures. They had not gathered enough crops to secure the duke's protection, and everyone there died. Among them was the farmer's married daughter. The weight of guilt crushed him. Unable to live with what he had done, he spent his days drowning in alcohol. As time passed, his grief turned into violence, and he began abusing his wife and children. Eventually, the battered wife reached her breaking point. Just like her husband before her, she was approached by a creature offering an easy solution. A snake promised to stop her suffering by biting the farmer while he slept. All it wanted in return was her soul. Desperate to save herself and her children, she agreed. A few days later, the farmer died from the snake's bite. Unfortunately, that was not the end of the tragedy. Without him, the family fell deeper into poverty. Their crops failed, their home deteriorated, and hunger became a daily reality. Soon, the second daughter found herself asking the same question everyone before her had asked. What should she do? That was when a goat transformed into a breathtakingly handsome man. His appearance was almost unreal, his silver hair shining brilliantly while his voice dripped with sweetness. The starving girl could barely look away. He gently offered salvation, promising wealth, food, and a better life for her struggling family. The only price was her soul and her loyalty. The man, of course, was Belair. And just like those before her, the desperate girl accepted. Belair smiled warmly and called her a good girl, but by now it is becoming painfully obvious where this story is heading. Every shortcut comes with a cost, and every deal with the devil only creates another tragedy waiting to happen. As the story ends, we finally learn what became of the farmer's daughter. The girl who traded her soul to Belair is now nothing more than a maid serving in his diamond castle. Yeah, that cheerful rescue he offered was never really a rescue at all. Meanwhile, Belair is absolutely furious about Pub Otherworld stealing his customers. He immediately turns his attention to Duke Wyzen and demands an explanation. How could he allow that Holstead woman to open a business right under his nose? Duke Wyzen quickly defends himself, insisting he was tricked. They claim to be grand devils from the edge of the world. How was he supposed to know they were Halsteads? Unfortunately for him, Belair is not interested in excuses. Grabbing him by the face, he warns him to watch his tongue before a grand devil. Without the protective artifact in the Wyzen castle, reading every thought in his head would have been effortless. The devil is clearly irritated. At first, he believed Velosa was the real problem and had been waiting for an opportunity to strike while the dragon was away. But now everything has changed. The Halsteads are not hiding behind walls. They are standing right in front of his castle and stealing his business. Still, Belair cannot simply crush them. As long as Letitia controls that recipe, destroying her operation would only hurt his own chances of obtaining it. So, now he faces Casaro. Should he attack them directly, or should he play along with their game? Honestly, our girl has Belair more rattled than he wants to admit. She is far too confident, far too calm, and that alone makes him deeply suspicious. Eventually, he decides on a different approach, calling over his assistant and ordering a team of his smallest and fastest subordinates to secretly watch Valasa. The assistant seems genuinely confused over why he is putting this much effort into one human, but Belair only smiles. Provoking a grand devil of wealth is not something people do every day. Rather than ending the game immediately, he decides to play along. In his mind, the ending is already decided. One way or another, he plans to take everything from the Holsteads. Their business, their success, and eventually, Letitia's soul. Meanwhile, back at Holstead Castle, Alex proudly announces that everything has been arranged exactly as requested, then casually drops a bombshell. Since they are now staying close together, Letitia and Erdin will be sharing the same bedroom. Our girl nearly short-circuits on the spot. Before she can even process that information, Alex is already telling Bastien to prepare everything, and Bastien immediately takes the assignment way too seriously. She decides the current bed is far too small for a married couple and volunteers to replace it entirely. Erdin seems confused by all the fuss, but renovation mode has already begun. When the work is finally done, Letitia discovers they did not actually get a larger bed. Instead, they built an entire second bunk directly above the original one. I mean, technically that solves the space problem. Still, our girl cannot calm down. For the first time, she is sleeping in the same room as Erdin, and her heart is absolutely working overtime. She keeps telling herself there is nothing strange about it since they are husband and wife, but knowing that and actually experiencing it are two completely different things. While lying awake pretending to sleep, she suddenly notices someone approaching her bed, and her heart nearly jumps out of her chest. Thankfully, Erdin is completely innocent, quickly apologizing and worrying that his face frightened her. She shuts that down immediately, and it turns out he only came to ask what time she would like to wake up in the morning. That is it. Nothing dramatic. Just our guy being considerate as always. After settling on waking up whenever he does, the awkward tension finally fades. He tells her to rest, she wishes him sweet dreams, he quietly returns the wish, and just like that, after all the kidnappings, devils, dragons, and business wars, the two finally drift off to sleep under the same roof. Honestly, this might be the most peaceful moment either of them has had in a very long time. The next morning, Duke Wyzen is invited and joins everyone for breakfast, and our girl is already convinced that Belair has finally decided to start using his brain. Erdin reassures the Duke not to worry about Valasa because their stone golems are guarding it. Sure, they are not exactly elite soldiers, but they have grown big enough to look intimidating. That revelation nearly makes the Duke choke. Taming evil creatures is supposed to be impossible, yet somehow these people keep doing the impossible like it is a normal Tuesday. Naturally, our girl refuses to explain and hides behind her favorite excuse, calling it a trade secret. Then she casually mentions that if Belair decides to visit them again, they should prepare a grand welcome. Both men immediately sense trouble. When she reveals that her next move involves an experiment, the confusion only grows. Meanwhile, Pub Otherworld finally reopens and the Sandcats practically assault the entrance. They are clawing at the doors, demanding stew like addicts waiting for their next fix. The moment the doors open, chaos erupts as customers fight over who gets served first. Some even try throwing money around to skip the line. Unfortunately for them, money is no longer accepted. That announcement leaves everyone stunned. Jewels? Artwork? Rare treasures? Nope, our girl wants contracts. Back when she questioned Erdin about devil contracts, she learned something fascinating. Contracts are the source of a devil's power, proof of the souls they have bound and the influence they have accumulated. The stronger the contract, the stronger the devil. And just like that, a dangerous idea was born. The Sandcats are completely baffled when she offers to accept contracts as payment. Some have contracts with other devils, others proudly boast about owning countless souls, but to our perfect girl, one contract equals one coin, and one coin equals one bowl of stew. The customers do not even hesitate. They start handing them over faster than she can count. Later, when Alex and the others stare at the strange pile of coins, our girl finally explains her plan. These are not ordinary coins. They are physical representations of devil contracts. They cannot be copied, forged, or stolen, and every single one now belongs to Pub Otherworld. In other words, she is quietly intercepting the very thing that gives devils their power, and that is when the real trap becomes clear. This was never about selling stew. This entire business has been one giant setup for Belair. Not long after, Belair finally arrives at Holstead Castle and greets everyone as if he had not recently kidnapped somebody's wife. The moment he lays eyes on Erdin, the atmosphere becomes unbelievably tense. Belair complains about the damage done to his castle, but our guy is having none of it. After all, this is the same devil who kidnapped Letitia. If anything, Erdin believes Belair got off easy. The two immediately start trading threats, and honestly, it feels like they are one bad sentence away from tearing the entire building apart. Trying to keep things from exploding, Letitia welcomes Belair and reminds him that she has been expecting him. Unfortunately, that only makes things worse. The second he steps closer, Erdin is already telling him to stay away from his wife. At that point, our girl realizes just how deeply devils affect him. He lost his parents because of them, and now she is asking him to sit across from one of the most powerful devils in existence. Feeling guilty, she gently suggests he wait outside if this is too much. And poor Erdin immediately looks devastated. Bro really hears, "Please leave," instead of, "Please take a break." Belair is absolutely loving this and even encourages him to go. But Erdin instantly grabs her hand and reminds her of their promise. The look on his face is so stubborn that our girl can practically see bunny ears growing out of his head. Anyway, Belair finally gets to the real reason he came. He wants to buy pub Otherworld. Simple enough, right? Not with Erdin sitting there acting like a very angry guard dog. Every time Belair opens his mouth, Erdin cuts him off. Every time he looks at Letitia, Erdin tells him to stop. Every time he breathes in her direction, Erdin looks ready to start a war. Meanwhile, Belair is internally losing his mind. He dressed up, showed up looking flawless, and planned to charm his way through the negotiation. Instead, Letitia does not care, and Erdin wants him gone. Even worse, when Belair tries reading Erdin's thoughts, all he gets is a non-stop flood of, "Don't look at my wife." At this point, the Grand Devil of Wealth is being mentally bullied. Eventually, Letitia drags the conversation back to business and reveals the true purpose behind Pub Otherworld's success. The famous stew was only the beginning. The real goal is a brand new currency called coin. While humans use Naira, devils have flooded the market with stolen human wealth for so long that its value is becoming unstable. 1 Naira means one thing to humans and something completely different to devils. The system is breaking apart. That is where coin comes in. Instead of being backed by ordinary money, it is backed by devil contracts themselves. The moment Belair understands what she is proposing, his expression changes. This is no longer about stew, restaurants, or sandcats. Our girl is trying to create an entirely new economic system for the devil world. And for the first time, even Belair is forced to admit that she might be far more dangerous than he originally thought. Belair cannot help but laugh at the sheer audacity of it all. A mere human lord from the northern frontier is actually trying to reshape the entire devil economy. To him, it sounds completely absurd, reckless even, but our girl is already several steps ahead. She openly admits that her influence alone is small, and running one little restaurant is difficult enough on its own, which is exactly why devils should be the ones helping expand the business among other devils. And judging by how much attention coin is already attracting, that part is working perfectly. The moment she mentions it, Belair becomes noticeably interested. Erdin immediately shifts in front of her like a living shield, and our girl casually explains that coin is now worth around 15 Naira. Belair nearly chokes on the number. That ridiculous stew is expensive enough already, but when Erdin confirms that the value was from just this morning, things get even crazier. Curious? Belair pulls out a strange pouch, and our girl instantly recognizes it as something similar to the one Pig carried. Erdin explains that it is a devil inventory, a magical storage space connected through portals. Basically, devils invented dimensional backpacks before anyone else even thought of the concept. Honestly, I would want one too. Then Belair reveals one of his prized inventions, a scale capable of calculating the true value of anything placed on it. Erdin immediately accuses him of creating it purely to scam people, which kicks off another round of bickering with Belair calling him a pinehead and Erdin looking ready to flip the entire table. Ignoring all of that, Belair demands a coin and places it on the scale. He expects a modest number. Instead, the numbers keep climbing. Higher, higher, and even higher. When the calculation finally stops, the result leaves everyone in the room stunned. 1 coin is now worth 500 Naira. Even Belair is genuinely shocked. Just moments ago, it was worth a fraction of that. Our girl calmly explains exactly what happened. Coin is a limited resource with no new contracts accepted after the issuance date, meaning supply is permanently restricted. Then, the most influential devil of wealth personally walked into Pub Otherworld, showing public interest in the currency. Every devil watching immediately panicked that Belair would monopolize the market and cut off access to the famous stew entirely. Demand exploded instantly. And just like that, the value skyrocketed tenfold. Belair slowly realizes he accidentally drove the price up himself. And our girl is not done. She calmly reminds him that there is also an exchange fee if he wants to convert coins back into Naira. The look on his face is absolutely priceless. The devil of wealth starts thinking seriously now. If a simple bowl of stew can generate this much value, controlling coin could be worth far more than his current businesses combined. But the more he analyzes it, the more he realizes everything traces back to the stew and the demand it creates. To control the currency, he needs to control the product. And that means obtaining the recipe. Just when the negotiation seems to settle into pure business, Belair casually throws out a poisonous remark about Erdin and his past. The atmosphere shifts instantly. Our girl notices immediately that he is deliberately trying to provoke something. He keeps pushing, hinting that there are things she does not know about Erdin's parents and the devils connected to their deaths. Then he offers her a deal. If she wants answers, all he needs is one tiny thing in return. And judging from that smug expression, whatever he is about to ask for is definitely not going to be cheap. Belair is not ready to walk away just yet. He tries one last trick, offering Letitia a small contract that sounds completely harmless on the surface. All she has to do is sign, and he will tell her the truth about Erdin's feelings. And honestly, that offer lands somewhere tender. She thinks about the divorce papers, the doubts that have been quietly building in her heart, and for one brief moment, she actually wants to know. But then, something clicks. Even if she learned everything, it would not change how she feels about him. And just like that, the bait loses its power. The second Belair notices she is not taking it, he switches tactics immediately, mocking their marriage and claiming they are only pretending to be a happy couple. Then he brings up the divorce papers, pointing out that once she leaves Holstead Castle, she will have absolutely nothing. And that one lands harder than expected, because it is not only Erdin she would be losing. It is Alex, Casaro, Bastion, the baby golems, and everyone who has quietly become her family. Before he can dig any deeper, Erdin shoves the payment receipt straight into his face and practically tells him to get lost. Naturally, that only irritates the Grand Devil further. As he leaves, he throws out one final warning. Once a person's fate becomes entangled with devils, there is no escaping it. Whether in life, death, or anywhere in between, their paths will cross again. Yeah, that kind of exit line never means anything good. Even after Belair is gone, his parting words keep echoing in Letitia's head. Outside Pub Otherworld, she is still trying to shake them off when Pig suddenly appears, having snuck away without Belair's knowledge because he wants to buy coins for himself. Since Belair publicly claimed he was not interested, Pig assumes the value must have dropped. She checks the price, hands him a coin, and tells him to come back tomorrow since the shop is already closed. The funny part is that this tiny transaction is exactly what Belair wanted all along. Back at Diamond Castle, Pig proudly delivers the coin only to get scolded for losing his inventory pouch. Still, Belair immediately checks the value and nearly loses his mind. Instead of crashing, the price keeps bouncing back every single time it dips. Day after day, he sits in front of his scale waiting for the perfect moment to buy, barely leaving his room. Bro has officially become a cryptocurrency trader. Meanwhile, Holstead Castle is quietly preparing the next stage of the plan, and Erdin briefs Peter and the others, fully convinced that Belair will fall for the trap. At the same time, Letitia is dealing with a completely different crisis. After learning how devil inventories work, she suddenly remembers the divorce papers she accidentally left inside Pig's inventory, and now she cannot find them anywhere. As she digs through the magical storage space, she starts wondering why losing them bothers her so much. Maybe because the idea of that divorce actually becoming real no longer feels right. Just then, Erdin checks on her and asks if spending every moment together has been overwhelming, worried she might need more space. That catches her completely off guard because she had assumed he was the one growing tired of her. Instead, she finds herself admitting the exact opposite, looking straight at him and confessing that she likes being with him far more than being alone. The moment Letitia blurts out that she likes being with Erdin more than being alone, both of them freeze completely. Erdin looks absolutely stunned, while our girl is internally panicking because she cannot believe those words actually left her mouth. His face turns red instantly, and he reaches for his mask as if it is the only thing that can save him right now. But before either of them can recover from the embarrassment, Casero bursts in with urgent news. Pub Otherworld just opened, and Belair bought every single coin on the market. Just like that, the trap snaps shut. Letitia heads outside where Belair is standing there looking extremely pleased with himself, proudly confirming he purchased everything available. Pig brings over the payment contracts and prepares the transfer, and Belair is completely confident. Once the value rises again, he will make everything back and then some. But then Pig spots something familiar in Letitia's possession. His missing inventory pouch, the one containing his entire treasured collection. The poor guy nearly breaks down on the spot, begging for it back, and she refuses to hand it over for free. Honestly, I almost felt bad for him. Almost. That is when everything starts unraveling for Belair. Since he spent virtually all his money buying coins, he no longer has enough to buy back Pig's pouch. Simple solution: sell some coins and exchange them back into Naira. Alex casually reveals that the exchange fee has suddenly jumped to 1,000 Naira per coin. Belair nearly explodes, demanding they lower it immediately, only to discover there is absolutely nothing in the contract preventing Pub Otherworld from raising the fee whenever they want. The realization hits him like a truck. He has been completely and utterly outplayed. Things only get worse for Belair from there. Letitia calmly reminds him that devils pride themselves on contracts and rules, and Pub Otherworld simply adjusted their business model. Meanwhile, coin values start dropping because stew prices were quietly lowered, and suddenly, Belair is sitting on a massive pile of assets worth far less than he expected. Furious, he accuses them of being swindlers, which is honestly hilarious considering a devil is standing there complaining about getting outsmarted by humans. Then, the final blow lands. Representatives from Hell Capital appear and offer Belair a loan service. Since he is convinced coin prices will recover, the loan sounds like an easy fix. All he has to do is use his castle, property, and possessions as collateral. Confident as ever, he signs without hesitation while Pig tries desperately to protest and gets completely ignored. Back at Holstead Castle, everyone can barely process how perfectly the plan came together. Thanks to that loan agreement, Belair has effectively handed over control of his entire wealth. Diamond Castle and everything attached to it could soon belong to the Holsteads. The trap stopped being a trap a long time ago. This is a full-scale financial takeover. Later that night, Letitia finally crashes, mumbling in her sleep that Belair has had it, while Erdin smiles quietly, watching her. But that smile disappears the moment he starts opening the stack of letters waiting for them. Count Moandrid, Duke Belair, and several others have all written at once. He reads one, and his expression shifts completely. And just like that, a brand new problem has arrived. Because apparently peace was never really an option for these two. The next morning, Letitia wakes up to find Erdin already dressed and preparing for the day. When she points out that he could have woken her, he simply says she was sleeping peacefully. But something feels different. The mask is back on. What she does not know is that he spent the entire night reading letter after letter from nobles who had caught wind of the divorce rumors. Some wanted to meet Lady Holstead. Others openly expressed interest in marrying her the moment it became official. One even listed his lands, wealth, and qualifications before formally requesting her hand. Every single letter felt like a knife twisting deeper into his chest. Rationally, he still believes letting her go is the right thing to do. But emotionally, it is tearing him completely apart. That mask is no longer hiding his face. It is hiding a broken heart. Still, there is no time to sit with that. Letitia immediately shifts back into business mode, because Belair is currently spiraling over coin prices and panicking about his finances, which makes him the perfect target for the next phase of the plan. Over at Diamond Castle, the trap is already being set in motion. Disguised as representatives from the financial security institution, Erdin's people arrive and slowly convince Belair that suspicious activity has been detected between inventories linked to his account. The more they talk, the more his confidence crumbles. They even remind him that a mere human has already dragged him into financial chaos once before. At this point, Bro should have realized that every single time someone shows up claiming they are here to help him, his wallet disappears. The fake investigators offer a convenient solution. Since his inventory is supposedly vulnerable, all his assets should be transferred into a brand new secure inventory issued by the financial security institution. And Belair falls for it completely. He hands over access, accepts the fancy new black pouch, and thanks them for protecting his wealth. Pig is absolutely horrified watching the whole thing unfold. The moment Belair proudly opens the pouch, he discovers it is completely empty. And before he can even process what just happened, another group arrives. Hell Capital. The second he recognizes them, panic starts setting in fast. Bastion calmly drops a red notice card on the table, officially informing him that he can no longer fulfill his contractual obligations, and Hell Capital is exercising its full rights to seize Diamond Castle and every asset attached to it. Belair completely loses it. His castle, his money, his possessions. Everything is gone in one clean sweep. The Grand Devil, who spent his entire existence chasing wealth, has just been financially obliterated by a group of humans from the northern frontier. And right when the full weight of reality finally crashes down on him, Erdin and Letitia walk through the door together. The look on Belair's face says absolutely everything. The trap worked perfectly, and honestly, he never stood a chance. Belair completely snaps. After losing his castle, his fortune, and practically everything he owns, the Grand Devil of Wealth can no longer contain himself. He roars that a mere human dared to challenge him with money of all things, and the irony is honestly beautiful. Then, in pure villain fashion, he transforms into a monstrous beast and prepares to crush both Letitia and Erdin right there on the spot. But our girl is not even slightly intimidated. She calmly reminds him of one very important detail. He signed the contract himself, and as long as that contract exists, he cannot reclaim a single asset he lost. Then she reveals the real damage. According to the agreement with Hell Capital, seizing Diamond Castle also means taking ownership of everyone working under it. One by one, the red cards activate, breaking Belair's control over his servants entirely. The maids regain their freedom and their voices. Even Pig finally comes back to his senses. People who had been trapped under his influence for years are suddenly free, and there is nothing he can do about it. Needless to say, Belair is absolutely furious, calling Letitia a witch and gearing up for another round of insults. But Erdin has reached his absolute limit. The moment Belair opens his mouth to disrespect his wife again, Erdin drives a punch straight into his nose and sends blood flying across the room. After holding back his anger through this entire scheme, he is completely done being patient. Belair stumbles back in pure shock while Erdin makes one thing crystal clear: nobody disrespects his wife in front of him. Even then, Belair refuses to accept defeat. He argues that while he signed the contracts, nowhere did they specifically mention taking his inventories, and in his eyes, the whole thing is fraud. Furious and humiliated, he swears he will drag them before the Supreme Devil Court, throws out one final threat about meeting them in hell, and disappears. Just like that, the once untouchable Grand Devil of Wealth walks away with absolutely nothing but his anger. Over at the Supreme Devil Court, Belair strolls in looking completely confident, fully convinced this is finally the moment they pay for everything. The trial begins immediately, and Letitia is placed under questioning. The judge goes straight to the point, asking whether she ignored the existing monetary system, created a virtual currency, lured Belair into investing everything, and manipulated the market to seize his assets through lending schemes and contracts. And our girl, to her own detriment, honestly admits that yes, all of it is true. Belair is sitting there looking absolutely delighted. But the moment she points out that every single step was backed by contracts he willingly signed, the entire atmosphere shifts. Belair starts yelling about fraud and deception, and the judge listens quietly, before delivering a verdict nobody in that room expected. Instead of condemning Letitia, he praises her. Fraud, deception, and betrayal are fundamental qualities of devils, and what she accomplished was not shameful. It was impressive. Belair stares in complete disbelief as the judge openly admires how a mere human outplayed one of the wealthiest devils in existence. Then comes the final humiliation. The case is dismissed entirely, and Belair is stripped of his Grand Devil title on the spot for the sheer embarrassment of losing to a human. The judge then turns to Letitia and tells her she has every quality needed to become a devil herself, encouraging her to descend into depravity someday. She walks out of the Supreme Devil Court in pure shock, having gone in expecting punishment and somehow leaving with a compliment. Back at Holstead Castle, everyone is anxiously waiting for news from the trial. The moment Letitia walks through the door, Alex immediately asks if they won. But before the celebration can even begin properly, something suddenly makes the inventory pouch feel much heavier in her hands. Then it hits her. Not only did they take Diamond Castle, but they inherited everything inside it. Belair's treasures, profits, and every asset attached to his name now belong to the Holsteads. The room goes completely silent for a moment before the shock sets in. As some of the former servants explain, Diamond Castle was never even Belair's to begin with. Long ago, he stole it through a contract, gradually trapping countless souls within its walls over the years. Now that his contracts are broken, those people are finally free. One former maid tearfully explains that their bodies perished long ago, yet their souls remained imprisoned for years, and now they can finally reunite with their families. Hearing person after person thank her leaves our girl completely overwhelmed, because she never expected that defeating Belair would end up saving this many lives. Before long, the entire estate erupts into one massive celebration. Rumors spread everywhere that the Holsteads defeated a Grand Devil and became unbelievably wealthy overnight, and people are already talking about moving to their territory. Casaro proudly shows off the sailboat she bought with her bonus, finally fulfilling a dream she thought retirement had taken from her forever. Then Erdin presents Alex with a ring she once sold to help the family survive during desperate times, having secretly tracked it down all these years just to return it to her. Alex breaks down in tears, and honestly, that moment hits differently. It is a small thing, but it says everything about the kind of person Erdin really is. Later that night, things grow much quieter. Letitia finally gathers the courage to tell Erdin the truth about the divorce papers. She lost them. Completely lost them. She braces herself for frustration, but instead he looks suspiciously relieved, calmly suggesting they can always have new papers drawn up, though it will naturally take some time. Our girl is more than happy to let that conversation drag on forever. But as she tries to change the subject and escape the awkwardness, her thoughts drift back to the moment he rescued her and called her name. The idea of never hearing him say it again hurts far more than she wants to admit. Just when she thinks the conversation is finally over, Erdin stops her. He quietly asks her to stay with him a little longer. Letitia is completely caught off guard. After everything that has happened, he admits there is something he has wanted to say for years but never found the courage to. Then he opens a small box and reveals a beautiful necklace, and the line that follows hits like a truck. He apologizes for missing the last 7 birthdays and softly wishes her a happy birthday. The room goes still. 7 years of feelings finally slipping through the cracks in the quietest, most unexpected way possible. Yeah, there is absolutely no way this man still thinks divorce is a good idea. Years back, Erdin catches his reflection and discovers another pimple, and before he can even deal with that minor crisis, footsteps approach. He scrambles for his mask, but it is too late. Hans bursts in calling his name, and Erdin practically falls over, telling him he has said 100 times to knock first. Hans apologizes with a grin and then casually mentions he already finished the book Erdin lent him yesterday. Already? Apparently, he was just too excited to stop reading. And when Erdin asks what his favorite part was, Hans does not even hesitate. When they defeated the dragon, both of them immediately agree, and then comes the real test of friendship. Favorite character, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Billy, Billy. They both say it at the same time and look at each other like they just discovered proof of destiny. This is clearly why they are best friends. Hans immediately suggests they train to become as strong as Billy Willy, but Erdin counters with the idea of a hearty breakfast date first. An hour later, after what was supposed to be training, both boys are flat on the ground. Hans looks over and asks how Erdin is already this good at swordsmanship, and then answers his own question before Erdin can, pointing out that Erdin has been taught by every teacher available, while a stable boy like him spends his days feeding horses. He says he hates it. He wants to become stronger, slay monsters, defeat grand devils, and become a warrior. Erdin then asks with a straight face whether Hans plans to slay him too. Hans is horrified by the question, insisting Erdin is his best friend and fellow warrior, then laughs and adds that a cursed character like him is actually popular with girls. Erdin considers that, then decides that what their adventure really needs is a wizard too. Someone to lift the curse while they conquer the dark lands together. That night, Erdin lies in bed smiling to himself, replaying those words over and over. Fellow warrior, I will lift the curse for you. The next morning, when a new book title arrives, he does not even open it. He will read it with Hans tomorrow. Honestly, this flashback just made everything about Erdin make so much more sense. Erdin opens up to Bastian and Casaro, reminiscing about the elderberry story and how he and Hans used to dream about going on adventures together, defeating monsters and gathering friends along the way. Hans even promised to join his cause and laughed about how Erdin was exactly the type of mysterious, good-looking but shy character popular in tales. The kind with a sad backstory who needs to carry on his family line but wonders who would ever want to marry someone like him. Erdin just stood there speechless, listening to him say it. He even talked about going on a journey together, and then Alex quietly dropped something that changes everything. There was already a life partner arranged for him. The room goes still for a second before our girl suddenly realizes, oh, that is me. Back to the present. Alex then shares something that catches everyone off guard. Apparently, Erdin cried so hard over feeling sorry for whoever ended up marrying a man like him, convinced no woman deserved that burden. And somehow that sends everyone into laughter while Erdin goes completely quiet and asks them to please stop. Our girl then asks what became of Hans and all those adventure dreams, and the answer genuinely surprises her. Turns out Hans had a natural talent for horses all along and is currently working as a royal stable keeper at the capital. He got a job. What about the monsters and the grand devils and all of it? But then Erdin grows quiet and says simply that he has Alex, Bastian, Casaro, and everyone else in the castle. And most of all, he has her. The Holstead name grew from a small, humble castle on the outskirts of the north, and a large part of that is because of her. He tells her he is really glad she became one of the Holstead Sea, and honestly, after everything these two have been through, that line hits harder than any grand confession ever could. After that heartfelt conversation, our girl is completely out of sorts. She keeps replaying everything Erdin said, and then a very dangerous realization creeps in. There is no real threat hanging over Holstead Castle anymore, which means eventually the bunk bed arrangement stops making sense, and they would just be sharing a room like a normal married couple. The moment she imagines waking up beside him every morning, her brain practically short-circuits. She starts coughing and desperately tries to calm herself down. Yeah, our girl is genuinely fighting for her life against her own imagination. Trying to distract herself, she stumbles onto a pile of letters she has never seen before, and the more she reads, the darker her expression gets. The next day, chaos erupts when Bastian urgently summons Erdin to the reception hall, which is somehow packed with nobles from the capital who heard about the divorce. Some brought lawyers to help speed up the process. Others are clearly just circling for what comes after. Erdin is having absolutely none of it and clears the entire room out in seconds. When he asks where Letitia is, Alex casually reveals she only pretended to be sick to avoid the whole mess. Meanwhile, our girl sits alone in the West Garden, tearing through letter after letter, getting angrier with every single one. Every proposal sounds identical. None of them actually cares about her. They only see something useful, and the moment things went wrong, every single one of them would happily dump the blame on her. And that is when it finally becomes crystal clear. The only place she has ever truly been free to be herself is Holstead Castle, and the only person who has consistently supported her, no matter how ridiculous her plans were, is Erdin. No matter how many letters arrive, that answer was never really in question. Just then, Erdin finds her in the garden. She nervously explains the letters and apologizes for tearing them up, when what she really wants to say is that she does not want anyone except him. But Erdin is trapped in his own thoughts, wrestling with whether keeping her close is truly the right thing given all the dangers surrounding him. Still, for the first time, he seriously considers just saying how he feels. He slowly reaches toward her face. The moment feels perfect. Years of bottled-up feelings are right on the edge of finally spilling out. And then Belair shows up. Of course he does. The mood explodes instantly. Erdin draws his sword, Letitia gets defensive, and Belair casually strolls in like he did not just detonate the most important moment of their entire relationship. He claims he desperately needs to ask Lady Letitia something. Erdin looks seconds away from launching him into another dimension, and even Letitia tells him to watch how he speaks to her husband. Belair ignores every bit of the hostility and finally blurts out the real reason he came. Could he possibly become her familiar? The silence that follows is absolutely priceless. Both Letitia and Erdin just stand there staring at him in complete disbelief. I swear this man never arrives without creating a brand new disaster. Now this is where things get completely unexpected. Belair explains that familiars are basically the lowest rank among devils, spending decades or even centuries obeying orders only to be discarded the moment they are no longer useful. So when Letitia asks why on earth he wants that life, his answer genuinely catches everyone off guard. After losing everything to her schemes and getting stripped of his Grand Devil title, he has become completely obsessed with understanding the terrifying level of cunning that allowed a mere human to outplay him. In his mind, she is some kind of evil genius, and he needs to figure out how she works. Letitia sits there trying to process what she is actually hearing. She already has money, a home, and everything she needs. Why would she want a devil servant? Belair desperately tries selling himself, even dangling information about an artifact hidden in Law Castle as a bargaining chip. But our girl absolutely dismantles whatever confidence he walked in with, pointing out that he was not even competent when he had full power and authority, so why would she hire him now? Then she kicks him straight out. Honestly, Bro walked in expecting a job interview and left with emotional damage. Later, while talking with Erdin, she discovers he had completely misread the situation and genuinely thought Belair was about to confess his love for her. Thankfully, Candy appears before that conversation can go anywhere truly awkward. Meanwhile, rumors start spreading across the territory. A polluted stream has suddenly become clean. Fires are being put out before they spread. Drunk troublemakers and pickpockets are mysteriously vanishing from the streets, and every single trail leads back to Belair. When Letitia confronts him, he proudly explains that he followed her advice and started with the basics, which apparently means helping people and doing good deeds. Yeah, a former Grand Devil trying to become a model citizen is genuinely the last thing anyone saw coming. She even notices he looks somehow younger than before. Seeing the effort, she reluctantly agrees to reconsider his familiar proposal if he keeps it up, and Belair practically lights up like a child hearing good news. Unfortunately, that creates a brand new problem for Erdin. A familiar contract is a bond between souls, and the realization that Belair could end up more closely connected to Letitia than he is sends him straight into panic mode. That evening, he gathers every ounce of courage he has and tries to finally tell her he loves her, only to completely fumble the moment and somehow pivot into talking about apple pie instead. Later, sitting alone and drowning in worry about the divorce, about rivals, about whether he even deserves her at all, a knock suddenly comes at his door. He opens it, and Letitia is standing right there. And just like that, every single thought in his head comes to a complete stop. Erdin opens the door and asks what brings her there at that hour. She admits that ever since they stopped sharing the bunk beds, things have felt strange and, honestly, a little lonely. She saw his lights were on and decided to drop by. Erdin tries to say something meaningful, clearly building up to something important, and then his stomach growls loudly. She asks if that was him. He apologizes immediately, insisting she ignore it. She just smiles and asks if they should sneak down to the kitchen instead. And just like that, the most heartfelt moment of the evening turns into a midnight raid. They slip downstairs hand in hand, both of them acting like teenagers sneaking past a curfew, whispering about whether they are really allowed to do this before reminding each other that they are literally the masters of the castle. In the kitchen, she discovers tomorrow's dessert and immediately explains her personal philosophy. Eat dessert first, and you can have as much as you want, like it is the main dish. She laughs and tells him about sneaking food as a little girl at her uncle's estate, always hungry, stuffing herself, and then locking Jocelyn in bed to cover her tracks. Getting caught meant a beating, but she did it anyway because to them, she was more of an annoying nuisance than an actual child. Erdin listens quietly, and she notices something is weighing on him. When she asks what he is pondering, she pulls out a flower petal and teaches him her personal decision-making method. Whatever answer disappoints you when the last petal falls, that is actually the choice you already made before you started. Then she feeds him a slice of dessert and tells him that hard things drain your energy, which means you have to eat well, especially when the work is heavy. Erdin quietly admits he never knew sharing a meal with someone could feel this good, and that stops her cold. She realizes he must have eaten alone in his room for years, carrying everything by himself, missing out on the simplest things most people take for granted. Spring breezes, cool streams, the first bite of a fresh apple. She watches him trying the flower petal method and wonders quietly whether she could use it too. Do it or not. Divorce or not. And she already knows which answer would disappoint her. She suggests they make this a regular thing, the kitchen raids, and as she feeds him another slice, he says he would absolutely love that. The next morning, Casero walks into the kitchen and stops dead. The entire dessert is gone. Bastian is completely unbothered while Casero declares she will simply make another one. But before anyone can enjoy that resolution, Alex cuts in with something far more serious. Since Belair's gambling house closed and both devil owners lost their business, low-class devils and evil beasts have started attacking people again. Our girl goes completely still. She worked this hard, fought this hard, and somehow ended up causing more damage to the very people she wanted to protect. Alex then gently suggests that if she really wants to fix this, there is one person who might actually be able to help. After all, the best person to handle a devil problem is a devil himself. And something tells me Belair is about to get that job offer after all. Belair gets sent to deal with the devils, and honestly, nobody expected him to handle it like this. He marches right up to them and complains that because they keep attacking humans, Pistol Letitia cannot focus on her great cause. The devils immediately perk up at that. If she is not making more shoes, then what exactly is this great cause? And that is when Belair completely makes something up on the spot and declares that Madame Letitia of the Great Red Flame is planning to conquer the entire continent. Yeah, bro just says it with a straight face. The devils are instantly impressed, and somehow it actually works. A few days later, attacks begin decreasing, and our girl is relieved to hear things are finally improving. Even the people around her admit that Belair has become surprisingly useful lately. Unfortunately for Erdin, that means Belair keeps earning praise, and he is absolutely not happy about it. Meanwhile, Erdin has been throwing himself into work. A drought threatens the crops, and he handles it immediately. Letitia asks for maintenance records, and he already has them ready. Our girl cannot help noticing how hard he has been trying lately. While she is admiring his efforts, he is secretly thinking about becoming a better husband. And honestly, it is kind of sweet. The problem is that he seems to be pushing himself too hard. He leaves early every morning with Valhana's, barely has time to rest, and she starts worrying about whether he is even eating properly anymore. She wants something as simple as breakfast together, but lately that feels surprisingly difficult. Just when things seem calm, a servant rushes in and asks Letitia to see something. The entire hall is shining so much from being cleaned that it is practically blinding. Naturally, she assumes someone spent hours cleaning it. Turns out it was Belair. When he proudly appears to report his accomplishment, everyone notices something strange. He has become tiny. Apparently, doing good deeds has weakened his devilish nature so much that he has physically shrunk. Our girl is completely caught off guard, while Belair immediately starts campaigning again to become her familiar. The moment she hesitates, this former Grand Devil nearly bursts into tears, asking if she plans to leave him as a tiny low-class devil forever. I cannot believe this is the same guy who used to terrorize everyone. That conversation leads somewhere much more serious. Letitia asks whether he could lift another devil's curse. Belair admits his power is too weak to identify it directly now, but there may be another way. If they can access the curse registry stored within the Library of Infinity, they might find answers. The catch is that the Library of Infinity is not actually a library. It is a small item currently believed to belong to Mephistel, the Grand Devil of Arrogance. Suddenly, everything starts connecting. Mephistel is the so-called saint worshipped in Abydos, a holy figure who has secretly been deceiving humans for ages while posing as a religious leader. Alex explains that Abydos is an extremely closed society. Casaro adds that the people worship holy beasts and participate in coming-of-age ceremonies. Belair then drops the real bombshell. Thousands of people there may already be bound by soul contracts through an artifact. Naturally, our girl wants to help. She tells Erdin everything and asks if they should do something about Abydos. But instead of agreeing, he grows serious. He reminds her of how many dangers she has already faced and admits he does not want her putting herself at risk anymore. That answer leaves her conflicted. If she tells him about the Library of Infinity, she will also have to reveal that she wants to break his curse. For now, she keeps it to herself. After all, Erdin once promised to protect her, yet lately she feels like she has been protecting everyone else. Still, she decides to wait a little longer before bringing it up again. The next morning, she can barely focus on breakfast. Between the Library of Infinity, Mephistel, Abydos, and Erdin's refusal, her mind is a mess. Then Erdin suddenly returns from another one of his early morning trips. When she asks where he has been going every day, he finally reveals the truth. He has been traveling to Serena's castle searching for the hidden artifact, and he believes he has finally found a dungeon connected to it. He even asks if she wants to come along. And just like that, all her worries ease a little. So that was why he had been so busy lately. Not because he was avoiding her. He had been working hard for their sake all along. And honestly, seeing our girl immediately soften after realizing that is pretty adorable. The search for the artifact is not exactly going well. The cave is packed with so many random items that finding anything important feels almost impossible. Still, there is one clue. The records mention that the first master of Serena's castle was an ancestor of the Holsteads, so if the artifact was hidden by them, following anything connected to that family might lead the way. While searching, Erdin suddenly notices something strange. What looked like simple vine decorations are actually two pairs of wings, the symbol of the Holstead family. Beneath them sits an old silver drainage structure with what seems to be a corroded sword fragment. Our girl immediately feels it looks familiar, and Erdin realizes why. It resembles the first treasured sword of the Holsteads, the same one from his ancestor's statue. Since the real sword is long gone, they rush to the family vault and retrieve the replica instead. The moment it is placed into the slot, the hidden mechanism activates and reveals the long-awaited artifact. But things get weird fast. As soon as Erdin touches it, the nearby statue changes form. The artifact turns out to be the Vial of Ignorance, an item that allows its user to disguise themselves however they wish. Meanwhile, our girl's mind is a complete mess. Between Abydos, Mephistel, the Library of Infinity, and the looming divorce, she barely knows where to focus anymore. At this point, I do not even blame her. Later, while reading through damaged records, she discovers a legend about the Sword of Limbo, a weapon supposedly powerful enough to split mountains and even tear through time and space. Of course, she laughs it off as another exaggerated myth. Unfortunately, the capital is far more interested in one thing, the divorce. It has been a month since the rumors spread, and people are getting impatient. A group of rude visitors storms the castle, demanding answers, and even insults our girl right in front of everyone. Big mistake. Erdin immediately steps in and threatens to banish them if they continue causing trouble, but the crowd refuses to back down. They accuse him of delaying the divorce because she brought prosperity and wealth to the Holstead family. The pressure keeps building until they finally demand a direct answer. Why has the divorce not happened yet? The entire room goes silent. Then Erdin drops an absolute bombshell. He flatly declares that they will not be getting divorced. Everyone freezes in shock, including our girl herself. Yeah, I definitely did not see him saying that out loud. Enjoying this so far? Please comment monster for part 3. Until next time, ciao.